When Evan Carver walked into his 20-year high school reunion, he never imagined he'd come face to face with his worst nightmare, Chloe Maddox, the girl who made his teenage years hell. But here she was, now a $4.6 billion tech mogul, while he could barely afford his secondhand blazer. What happened next would change everything. Stay with me until the end of this story and comment below what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this tale travels. The gymnasium of Lincoln High hadn't changed much in 20 years. The same scuffed hardwood floors that had witnessed countless basketball games and awkward school dances still bore the faint yellow lines of a court that had seen better days. Paper streamers in the school colors, crimson and gold, hung from the rafters with the kind of artificial cheerfulness that made Evan Carver's stomach turn. A banner stretched across the far wall proclaimed, "Class of 2005 20-Year Reunion," in letters that sparkled with an enthusiasm Evan absolutely did not share. He stood just inside the double doors, his hand still on the push bar as if he might bolt at any second. His blazer, a navy blue number he'd found at Goodwill 3 weeks ago, felt tight across his shoulders. Not because it didn't fit, but because every muscle in his body had tensed the moment he'd stepped through those doors. The white dress shirt underneath was one of his good teaching shirts, the ones he reserved for parent-teacher conferences and the occasional faculty meeting where the principal actually cared about appearances. "Dad, you're doing that thing again." Evan looked down to find his 11-year-old daughter, Lily, staring up at him with those impossibly perceptive brown eyes that seemed to see straight through every defense he'd ever constructed. "What thing?" he asked, though he knew exactly what thing. "The thing where you look like you're about to face a firing squad." Lily adjusted the purple headband that held back her dark curls, curls she'd inherited from her mother, along with the ability to read him like a book. "You promised you'd try to have fun." "I am having fun," Evan lied, managing what he hoped was a convincing smile. Lily crossed her arms, and for a moment she looked so much older than 11 that it broke his heart a little. "Dad, you've been standing in the doorway for 3 minutes. People are starting to stare." He glanced around and realized she was right. A few clusters of his former classmates had indeed turned to look at the man blocking the entrance like some kind of anxious bouncer. Heat crept up his neck, and he finally let the door swing shut behind him, committing himself to at least a minimal amount of social interaction. "Okay, but we're leaving the second you get bored," Evan said, placing a protective hand on Lily's shoulder as they moved deeper into the gym. "Deal. But you have to actually talk to people. That's the whole point of a reunion." "The whole point of a reunion is to make people feel inadequate about their life choices," Evan muttered, but Lily had already spotted the refreshment table and was tugging him in that direction. The gym had been transformed as much as a high school gymnasium could be. Round tables covered in white cloths dotted the space, each with a centerpiece of crimson and gold balloons weighted down by glittering stones. A DJ booth had been set up on the stage where Evan had once delivered a valedictorian speech that now felt like it belonged to a different person entirely. Upbeat music played at a volume that suggested the organizers wanted to encourage conversation but not coherent thought. Evan recognized faces, though most had changed in the way that 20 years of living tends to change people. Hairlines had receded, waistlines had expanded, and everyone seemed to carry themselves with either the confidence of success or the weariness of survival. He wondered which category he fell into and suspected it was firmly the latter. "Mr. Carver, is that you?" He turned to find Amy Chen, who'd been in his AP English class and had gone on to become a dental hygienist according to her name tag. She looked genuinely pleased to see him, which was disarming. "Amy, hi. Please, it's just Evan. We're not in class anymore." "Old habits," she laughed. She glanced down at Lily with warm curiosity. "And who's this?" "This is my daughter, Lily. Lily, this is Amy. We went to school together." "Nice to meet you," Lily said with the practiced politeness of a child who'd been coached on meeting strangers. "Your dad was the smartest kid in our class," Amy said conspiratorially. "Always had the best answers in English. Are you following in his footsteps?" Lily grinned. "I like books, but I'm better at math." "A Renaissance woman," Amy said approvingly. "Well, Evan, it's great to see you. You still teaching?" "Yeah, over at Riverside High. English, just like old times." "That's wonderful. We need good teachers." There was something in Amy's tone that suggested she meant it, not just as a pleasantry. "Are you here with anyone else? I mean, besides Lily?" The question hung in the air, and Evan recognized it for what it was, the polite way of asking if he was married, dating, or otherwise not alone in the world. "Just us two," he said, keeping his voice light. "Lily wanted me to do something fun for once, so here we are." Amy's expression softened with understanding rather than pity, which Evan appreciated. "Well, there's worse ways to spend a Saturday night. Enjoy yourselves." As Amy moved away to greet someone else, Lily looked up at him. "She was nice." "Yeah, she was." "Not everyone here is going to be terrible, Dad." Evan wanted to believe that. He really did. But then he heard it. That laugh. That particular crystalline laugh that had haunted the hallways of Lincoln High like some kind of beautiful, terrible ghost. His entire body went rigid. "Dad?" Lily's voice seemed to come from very far away. "You okay?" He wasn't okay. Because across the gymnasium, surrounded by a cluster of admirers like some kind of homecoming queen who'd never left the throne, was Chloe Maddox. She looked incredible. That was the first thought that crashed through Evan's mind, followed immediately by a wave of something that felt uncomfortably close to the inadequacy he'd felt at 17. Her blonde hair fell in perfect waves past her shoulders, catching the light in a way that suggested either excellent genetics or an expensive stylist, probably both. She wore a dress that probably cost more than Evan's monthly rent, something sleek and black that managed to be both elegant and commanding. Diamond earrings caught the light as she threw her head back, laughing at something one of her companions had said. 20 years had been kind to Chloe Maddox in every way that mattered to people who cared about such things. She looked successful. She looked powerful. She looked like someone who had never spent a single moment of her life worrying about whether she could afford new shoes or whether her kid needed a new winter coat. "Dad, you're doing that statue thing again." Lily waved a hand in front of his face. "What's wrong?" Everything. Everything was wrong. This had been a mistake. Coming here had been a colossal mistake. And now he was going to have to spend the rest of the evening trying to avoid eye contact with the person who had made his teenage years a living hell. "Nothing, sweetie. Just saw someone I used to know." Lily followed his gaze, and he realized too late that he should have been more subtle. "The pretty lady in the black dress?" "That's one way to describe her," Evan said, his voice coming out flatter than he intended. Before he could steer them in the opposite direction, the DJ's voice boomed through the speakers. "All right, Lincoln High Class of 2005. Can I have your attention, please?" The music dimmed and the chatter in the gym gradually quieted as people turned toward the stage. Evan felt a sense of dread settling in his stomach like a stone. "I want to take a moment to recognize some of our most accomplished alumni," the DJ continued, reading from a card with theatrical enthusiasm. "We've got doctors, lawyers, business owners, and even a published author in the house tonight." Polite applause rippled through the crowd. Evan clapped mechanically, already anticipating where this was going. "But I want to give a special shout-out to someone who really put Lincoln High on the map." The DJ paused for dramatic effect. "Please join me in congratulating Chloe Maddox, founder and CEO of Nexus Technologies, recently valued at $4.6 billion. The gymnasium erupted. Not just applause, but cheers, whistles, and the kind of celebration usually reserved for sports victories or lottery winners. Chloe smiled, modest, gracious, every inch the successful entrepreneur who'd learned to accept accolades with perfect poise. Evan felt like he might be sick. "Did he say billion?" Lily whispered, her eyes wide. "With a B?" "With a B," Evan confirmed, his voice hollow. He watched as people swarmed Chloe, everyone wanting a moment with the local success story. She handled it all with practiced ease, shaking hands, accepting congratulations, laughing at jokes that probably weren't that funny. And why shouldn't she? This was her night. Her victory lap. 20 years later, and she was still the center of attention, still the one everyone wanted to be near. Meanwhile, Evan Carver taught sophomore English to kids who mostly didn't want to be there, drove a car with a check engine light that had been on for 6 months, and was wearing a secondhand blazer to a reunion he hadn't even wanted to attend. "She's the one, isn't she?" Lily said quietly. "The one who was mean to you. Mean?" Evan looked down at his daughter in surprise. "How did you—" You told me about high school once when I asked why you didn't like talking about it. Lily's expression was serious now, protective in the way that children sometimes were with their parents. You said there was a girl who made fun of you because we didn't have money. He had told her that during one of their late-night conversations when Lily couldn't sleep and had asked about his childhood. He'd tried to keep it vague, but Lily had pressed, and he'd finally admitted that high school hadn't been easy, that there had been people who hadn't been kind. That was a long time ago, Evan said, trying to sound dismissive. People change. But even as he said it, he wasn't sure he believed it. Could someone really change that much? Could the girl who had orchestrated a campaign of social humiliation that lasted 4 years really become a different person just because she was now successful? Maybe we should go, Lily suggested. This doesn't seem fun for you. Evan was about to agree when he heard that voice. Evan? Evan Carver? He turned slowly, knowing before he even completed the motion who he would see. Chloe Maddox stood 3 feet away, and up close she was even more overwhelming than she'd been across the gymnasium. Her perfume, something subtle and expensive, reached him first, followed by the full weight of her attention. Those blue eyes that had once regarded him with such casual cruelty now looked at him with something that might have been nervousness. "It is you," she said, and there was something in her voice that sounded almost uncertain. "I wasn't sure. You look different." "And 20 years will do that," Evan said, proud of how steady his voice came out. "Congratulations on your success." "Thank you." She glanced down at Lily, and her expression softened in a way that seemed genuine. "And who's this?" Lily, who had been regarding Chloe with the kind of suspicious evaluation usually reserved for potential threats, didn't immediately answer. "This is my daughter Lily," Evan said, placing a protective hand on her shoulder. "It's nice to meet you, Lily." Chloe extended her hand, and after a moment's hesitation, Lily shook it. "Your dad and I went to school together." "I know," Lily said, her tone carefully neutral. If Chloe caught the coolness in Lily's response, she didn't show it. Instead, she turned her attention back to Evan. "It's been such a long time. I was hoping I might run into you tonight." That surprised him. "Were you?" "I was." Chloe fidgeted with one of her diamond earrings, a gesture that seemed out of place with her polished exterior. "Actually, I was wondering if we could talk. Privately, I mean. Just for a moment." Every instinct Evan had screamed at him to say no, to grab Lily and leave, to put as much distance between himself and Chloe Maddox as humanly possible. This woman had made his life hell. She'd mocked him for his clothes, his car, his part-time job at the grocery store. She'd turned his name into a punchline, secondhand Evan, and the nickname had stuck for 4 humiliating years. "I don't think that's a good idea," Evan said. "Please." The word came out soft, almost vulnerable. "I know I don't deserve it, but there's something I need to say to you, something I should have said 20 years ago." Lily tugged on his sleeve. "Dad, I'm going to go look at the trophy case. Is that okay?" He recognized the gesture for what it was. Lily giving him space, giving him the choice without her there. She was too perceptive for her age, too aware of adult dynamics that she shouldn't have to navigate. "Stay where I can see you," Evan said, "and don't leave the gym." "I won't, promise." She squeezed his hand once and then headed off toward the hallway where the school's trophy cases lined the walls. Evan watched her go, then turned back to Chloe. "You've got 5 minutes." "Thank you. Can we—" She gestured toward a quieter corner of the gym, away from the clusters of people and the pounding music. Against his better judgment, Evan followed her. They ended up near the emergency exit, where the noise of the reunion faded to a manageable murmur. Chloe leaned against the wall, and for a moment she looked less like a billionaire tech mogul and more like the uncertain teenager he sometimes remembered from their junior year, before everything had turned cruel. "What do you want, Chloe?" Evan asked, keeping his voice flat. He wasn't going to make this easy for her. She took a deep breath. "I want to apologize." Evan blinked. Of all the things he'd expected her to say, that hadn't even made the list. "I was horrible to you in high school," Chloe continued, the words coming faster now, as if she'd been holding them in for years. "I was cruel and petty, and I made your life hell for no good reason. You didn't deserve any of it." You were smart and kind, and you never did anything to me, and I—" She stopped, her eyes glistening with what looked like genuine tears. "I treated you terribly, and I'm sorry. I'm so, so sorry." Evan stood there, stunned into silence. This was not how this conversation was supposed to go. In his mind, Chloe Maddox was the villain of his high school story, and villains didn't apologize. They didn't look at you with regret in their eyes and admit they'd been wrong. Why? The question came out harsher than he intended. Why were you so awful to me? What did I ever do to you? Chloe winced. Nothing. You didn't do anything. That's what makes it worse. She wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly looking cold despite the warmth of the gym. I was miserable back then. My home life was complicated. My parents were never around, and when they were fighting. I felt invisible and powerless and angry all the time. And you, she met his eyes. You were everything I wasn't. You were genuine. You cared about things. You had this integrity that I envied so much it made me hate you. So you made me miserable because you were miserable? Evan heard the bitterness in his voice and didn't try to hide it. That's your excuse? No, God, no. Chloe shook her head vehemently. There is no excuse. I'm not trying to justify what I did. I'm just trying to explain it, and to tell you that I've thought about it every year since graduation. Every time I reach some new milestone, some new achievement, there's this voice in my head reminding me that I built my success on the back of hurting people who didn't deserve it. People like you. Evan didn't know what to say to that. Part of him wanted to tell her that her apology was too little, too late. That you couldn't erase 4 years of torment with a few heartfelt words at a reunion. But another part of him, the part that taught teenagers every day and saw how cruel they could be to each other, how much they were all just struggling to survive their own pain, that part wondered if maybe people really could change. Your daughter is beautiful, Chloe said softly. You must be very proud. I am. Evan's voice came out defensive. She's the best thing in my life. I can tell. The way she looked at me, Chloe smiled sadly, like she was ready to defend you. You've raised her well. She's had to grow up fast. Evan wasn't sure why he was sharing this. Her mother left when she was 3. It's been just the two of us ever since. Chloe's expression crumpled with sympathy. I'm sorry. That must have been incredibly hard. We manage. Evan shifted his weight, uncomfortable with the direction the conversation had taken. Look, I appreciate the apology. I do. But I'm not sure what you want me to say. That it's all forgotten? That we're good now? No. Chloe straightened up, squaring her shoulders. I don't expect forgiveness. I just needed you to know that I regret what I did. That if I could go back and do it differently, I would. You deserved better than what I gave you. Before Evan could respond, a loud voice cut through the relative quiet of their corner. Well, 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 secondhand Evan. Evan closed his eyes, recognizing the voice immediately. Jake Morrison. Star quarterback, Chloe's boyfriend for 3 years of high school, and the architect of many of Evan's worst moments. Jake swaggered over, looking every bit the former jock who'd never quite left high school behind. He'd put on weight in the way that former athletes often did. His face ruddier than Evan remembered, probably from too many beers and not enough exercise. But his smile was the same, cruel and self-satisfied. I heard you were here, Jake said, his words slightly slurred. Couldn't believe it. Thought you'd be too embarrassed to show your face. Jake, Chloe started, but he cut her off. And you're talking to our resident billionaire? That's ambitious, man. You hoping she'll throw you some charity? Jake laughed at his own joke, and Evan felt every muscle in his body tense. This was exactly why he hadn't wanted to come. This right here. Leave him alone, Jake, Chloe said, her voice sharp in a way that surprised Evan. Oh, come on, babe, we're just reminiscing. Jake clapped a heavy hand on Evan's shoulder, and it took every ounce of self-control Evan had not to shove it off. Remember when we used to call him Secondhand Evan because everything he owned came from thrift stores? Classic stuff. It wasn't classic, Chloe said coldly. It was cruel. And I'm not your babe. We broke up 20 years ago. Jake blinked, clearly not expecting pushback. Geez, lighten up. It was just high school stuff. No hard feelings, right, Evan? Evan looked at Jake, at this man who had made his teenage years a gauntlet of humiliation, and felt something shift inside him. Not anger. He'd carried that for too long. Not even resentment. Just a kind of weary recognition that some people never grow up, never evolve beyond their high school selves. Actually, Jake, there were a lot of hard feelings, Evan said quietly. You and your friends made my life hell. You mocked me for being poor, for working to help my mom pay bills, for not being able to afford the things you took for granted. And you know what? You didn't just hurt me. You taught everyone around you that it was okay to punch down, to make fun of people who had less than you. So no, we're not good. The smile slid off Jake's face. Man, you need to learn to take a joke. And you need to learn when to shut up, Chloe said, stepping between them. Evan doesn't owe you anything. Not his forgiveness, not his friendship, not even his time. So why don't you go find someone else to bother? Jake looked between them, his expression darkening. You defending him now? After everything? That's rich. Yes, I'm defending him. Because unlike you, I've actually grown up enough to realize what we did was wrong. Chloe's voice had taken on an edge of steel. Now leave, before I have security escort you out. Security? Jake scoffed. This is a high school reunion, not one of your fancy corporate parties. And yet, I guarantee I can make one phone call and have you removed from this building. Chloe pulled out her phone, her thumb hovering over the screen. Want to test me? For a moment, Jake looked like he might argue. Then something in Chloe's expression must have convinced him she wasn't bluffing. He held up his hands in mock surrender. Whatever. You two deserve each other. He stalked off, muttering under his breath. Evan stood there, his heart pounding, trying to process what had just happened. Chloe Maddox, the person who had originated his humiliating nickname, had just defended him against her ex-boyfriend. I'm sorry about that, Chloe said, pocketing her phone. Jake never did know when to quit. You didn't have to do that. Yes, I did. Chloe met his eyes, and there was something fierce in her expression. I told you I regret what I did in high school. That means actually doing something about it when I see it happening again. Words are easy. Actions matter. Before Evan could respond, he saw Lily hurrying back across the gym, her face lit up with excitement. Dad! They have your speech in the trophy case, the one you gave at graduation. Evan felt heat rise in his cheeks. They do? Yeah, it's so cool. Come see. Chloe smiled, and for the first time that night, it looked completely genuine. Valedictorian speech? I didn't remember that. You probably weren't paying attention, Evan said, but there was less bite in his voice than before. I probably wasn't, Chloe admitted. I missed a lot back then, being so caught up in my own misery. Can I? She hesitated. Can I come see it too? Evan looked at Lily, who had stopped bouncing long enough to regard Chloe with renewed interest. His daughter gave him a slight nod. Permission, or maybe encouragement. Sure, Evan heard himself say. Why not? They walked together across the gym, Lily chattering about the trophy case and all the old photos she'd found. Other people tried to stop Chloe to get her attention, but she waved them off politely, keeping pace with Evan and Lily. The trophy case was exactly where Evan remembered it, though more crowded now with 20 additional years of achievements. There, among the sports trophies and academic awards, was a photo of him at 18 standing at the podium in his graduation gown, mid-speech. The plaque beneath it read, Evan Carver, Valedictorian 2005. The future belongs to those who show up for it. That was your closing line, Chloe said softly, reading the plaque. I do remember that. Everyone was talking about it afterwards. Were they? Evan looked at her skeptically. They were. You told everyone that success wasn't about where you came from, but about showing up every day and doing the work. That the future wasn't handed to anyone. You had to build it yourself. Chloe's voice had gone quiet. It's a good message. It's a true message, Evan said. Though I'll admit some days are harder to show up for than others. Lily tugged on his sleeve. Can we get something to drink? I'm thirsty. Of course, sweetie. Let's... Actually, Chloe interrupted, then seemed to catch herself. Sorry, I don't mean to presume, but could I buy you both a drink? Not here, I mean. There's a coffee shop around the corner. unless you need to get back to the reunion. Evan looked at Chloe, this woman who had been his tormentor and was now offering what? Friendship? Absolution? He wasn't sure, but something had shifted tonight. Maybe it was the apology, or the way she'd stood up to Jake, or the genuine regret he'd seen in her eyes. Maybe it was just that 20 years was a long time to carry anger. I don't know, Evan said honestly. Please? Chloe's voice was small. I know I don't deserve it, but I'd really like a chance to talk more, to actually get to know you. The real you, not the version I created in my head to make myself feel better. Lily looked up at him, her expression curious but not opposed. She was leaving the decision to him. Evan thought about all the times he'd imagined running into Chloe Maddox again. In every scenario, he'd been the one with power, the one who got to walk away with his head held high while she regretted her choices. But standing here now, looking at this woman who seemed genuinely remorseful, who had defended him when she didn't have to, he realized that revenge fantasies were ultimately hollow. Maybe the bravest thing he could do was give someone a second chance. Okay, Evan said. Coffee, but just coffee. No promises beyond that. Chloe's face lit up with a smile that transformed her entire expression. Just coffee. I'll take it. As they headed for the exit, Lily slipped her hand into his and whispered, You're being very brave, Dad. Or very stupid, he whispered back. Maybe both, Lily said with the wisdom of someone far beyond her years. But I think it's mostly brave. They pushed through the doors of Lincoln High, leaving the reunion behind, stepping out into the cool night air. Above them, stars glittered in a clear sky, and Evan wondered if maybe, just maybe, some wounds could heal after all. He didn't know what the future held. Didn't know if Chloe's apology would translate into anything meaningful, or if this was just one strange night that would fade into memory. But as they walked toward the coffee shop, Lily chattering about something she'd seen in the trophy case, Chloe laughing at something his daughter said, Evan felt something he hadn't felt in a very long time. Hope. And that, he thought, was worth showing up for. The coffee shop Chloe led them to was nothing like the corporate chains that dotted every corner of the city. The Midnight Bean occupied a corner building that looked like it had been someone's house in a previous life, complete with a wraparound porch and window boxes that probably bloomed with flowers in warmer months. String lights crisscrossed the outdoor seating area, creating pools of warm light in the November darkness. Through the large front windows, Evan could see exposed brick walls, mismatched furniture, and shelves lined with books that customers were apparently free to read. I discovered this place the last time I was in town, Chloe explained as she held the door open for them. It's family-owned. Been here for 30 years. The interior smelled like coffee and cinnamon, with undertones of old wood and vanilla. A handful of customers occupied various corners. A college student hunched over a laptop, an elderly couple sharing a piece of cake, a woman reading a paperback novel. Jazz played softly from speakers Evan couldn't see, just loud enough to fill the silence without demanding attention. A barista with purple hair and multiple piercings looked up from behind the counter, her face brightening when she saw Chloe. Ms. Maddox, you're back! Hi, Jade, I couldn't stay away. Chloe gestured to Evan and Lily. These are my friends. What do you recommend tonight? Evan felt a small jolt at being called Chloe's friend, though he wasn't sure if it was discomfort or something else entirely. Lily, meanwhile, had her nose practically pressed against the pastry case, her eyes wide with the kind of wonder usually reserved for Christmas morning. The apple cider is amazing right now, Jade said. Made it fresh this afternoon, and we've got pumpkin scones that are still warm. Dad, can I have hot chocolate? Lily asked, looking up at him with those eyes that made it impossible to say no, even when his budget was screaming at him. Sure, sweetie. He glanced at the menu board, mentally calculating. The prices were reasonable, thankfully. I'll have a regular coffee, black. Make it 3 hot chocolates, Chloe said before Evan could protest. And 3 of those scones. We'll sit by the fireplace. Coming right up. Evan opened his mouth to object, to insist on paying for his and Lily's order, but Chloe was already moving toward a seating area in the back, where a gas fireplace created a cozy glow. She'd pulled out her wallet so quickly he hadn't even seen the motion, and by the time he caught up with her, she was tucking a black credit card back into her purse. You didn't have to do that, Evan said, keeping his voice low so Lily, who was examining a shelf of board games nearby, wouldn't hear. I know. I wanted to. Chloe settled into one of the oversized armchairs flanking the fireplace. Consider it a very small down payment on my apology debt. You don't owe me hot chocolate. Maybe not, but I owe you something, and since I can't give you back 4 years of your life, this will have to do. She said it lightly, but there was weight behind the words. Evan sank into the opposite chair, feeling the exhaustion of the evening catching up with him. The leather was worn soft with age, and the cushion seemed to embrace him in a way that made his second-hand couch at home feel like a medieval torture device by comparison. This is surreal. You know that, right? 2 hours ago, I was debating whether to fake a stomachache to get out of the reunion. Now I'm having hot chocolate with the person who made high school hell. I really was that bad, wasn't I? Chloe's expression crumpled slightly. You really were. Evan saw no point in sugarcoating it. There were days I didn't want to go to school because I knew you and your friends would be there, waiting to find something new to mock. Chloe winced like he'd physically struck her. The thrift store clothes. Among other things, my car, my job, the fact that I brought lunch from home instead of buying it, the way I spoke, the books I read. The memories came flooding back, each one a small cut that had never quite healed. You were creative, I'll give you that. I was horrible. Chloe's voice had gone very quiet. God, Evan, I was so horrible. Yes, you were. He met her eyes across the space between their chairs, and he saw her flinch from the truth of it. But you were also 17. We all did things at 17 we're not proud of. Did you? The question came out sharp, almost challenging. Did you do things you regret? Because from where I sat, you were the good guy, the one who actually cared about making the world better. You volunteered at the library, you tutored other kids for free, I let you bully me for 4 years without ever standing up for myself. The words came out harder than Evan intended. I let you convince me I was worthless because I didn't have money. I let your opinion matter more than my own. So yeah, I have regrets too. Before Chloe could respond, Jade appeared with a tray laden with 3 mugs of hot chocolate topped with whipped cream and chocolate shavings, and a plate of scones that looked like they belonged in a magazine spread. Here you go. Can I get you anything else? This is perfect, thank you, Chloe said, her professional smile sliding into place so seamlessly that Evan almost didn't notice the transition. Lily materialized the moment she smelled chocolate, climbing into the chair next to Evan's and eyeing the treats with barely contained excitement. This looks amazing. Wait for it to cool, Evan warned automatically, then caught himself doing the dad thing in front of Chloe and felt oddly self-conscious about it. But Chloe was smiling, and it looked genuine. Smart advice. I burned my tongue on coffee this morning because I was in too much of a hurry. Dad says patience is a virtue, Lily said, blowing carefully on her hot chocolate. But he also says it's a virtue he doesn't have. Lily. Evan felt heat creep up his neck. What? You do say that? Lily looked at him with wide-eyed innocence that wasn't fooling anyone. Chloe laughed, and the sound was different from the crystalline laugh Evan remembered from high school. This one was warmer, more real. Your daughter is delightful. She's something, Evan agreed, shooting Lily a look that she ignored completely. They sipped their drinks in silence for a moment. The hot chocolate was indeed excellent, rich and creamy without being too sweet, the kind that made you believe in small pleasures. Evan watched Lily take a bite of scone and close her eyes in pure bliss, and he felt a familiar pang of guilt that he couldn't give her things like this more often. Not gourmet coffee shop treats, but moments of uncomplicated joy. So, Chloe said, breaking the comfortable quiet, you teach at Riverside High. Yeah, sophomore and junior English mostly. Been there for 8 years. Do you like it? It was such a simple question, but Evan found himself actually considering it instead of giving the automatic answer. Most days, the kids they're challenging, but they're also full of potential. Every year I get at least one student who reminds me why I wanted to teach in the first place. Which is, because someone has to tell those kids that books matter, that words matter, that their thoughts and ideas matter, even if the world tries to convince them otherwise. He paused, aware that he was getting onto his teaching soapbox. Sorry, I tend to get passionate about this. Don't apologize. It's nice to hear someone talk about their work like they actually care about it. Chloe wrapped both hands around her mug. Most people I meet in the tech industry treat their jobs like elaborate games they're trying to win. The passion is there, but it's passion for beating the competition, not for the actual work. Is that what you do? Try to beat the competition? I used to. Chloe's expression turned thoughtful. When I first started Nexus, I was hungry, desperate to prove something, to myself, to my parents, to everyone who'd ever doubted me. Every deal, every acquisition, every milestone was a victory. But somewhere along the way, it stopped feeling like winning and started feeling like, I don't know, running on a treadmill, moving fast but going nowhere. Lily had finished her scone and was now watching their conversation like it was a tennis match, her head turning between them with undisguised curiosity. Is that why you're here? Evan asked. At the reunion? Looking for something you lost along the way? Maybe. Chloe met his eyes. Or looking to fix things I broke? I'm not sure there's a difference. Dad broke a plate once, Lily offered helpfully. He glued it back together, but you could still see the cracks. Lily, Evan started, but Chloe was already smiling. That's a perfect metaphor, actually. Some things can't be fixed perfectly. The cracks remain. She looked at Evan. But maybe they don't have to be invisible to be okay. Evan took a sip of his hot chocolate, using the moment to gather his thoughts. This conversation was veering into territory he hadn't anticipated, and he wasn't sure he was ready for it. What exactly are you asking me, Chloe? I'm asking if you think people can change. If someone who was cruel at 17 can be different at 37. I think people can change, Evan said carefully. I've seen it happen. Kids who were nightmares in sophomore year become thoughtful, caring seniors. But I also think change requires more than just wanting it. It requires action, consistency, proving over time that you're different. That's fair, Chloe set down her mug. So what would that look like? If I wanted to prove I've changed? I don't know. That's not really my problem to solve. You're right. It's not. Chloe leaned forward, her elbows on her knees, and for a moment she looked younger, uncertain. But I'd like the chance to figure it out. With you, I mean. I'd like to get to know who you are now, not the version of you I created in my head 20 years ago. And I'd like you to know who I am now, the real me, not the billionaire tech mogul version. Evan felt something shift in his chest. This was dangerous territory. Getting close to someone who'd hurt him before, opening himself up to potential hurt again. The smart thing would be to finish his drink, thank her politely, and walk away. Keep his distance, protect himself and Lily from complications they didn't need. But then he looked at Chloe, really looked at her, and saw something he hadn't expected. Loneliness. The kind of bone-deep loneliness that came from having everything you thought you wanted and realizing it wasn't enough. He recognized it because he saw it in his own mirror every morning. Okay, Evan heard himself say, but I need you to understand something. I've got a daughter to think about. If we're going to do this, whatever this is, you need to be genuine. Lily doesn't need any more instability in her life. I understand. Chloe's voice was steady. I would never do anything to hurt her. Or you. Not again. Dad's really protective, Lily said, matter-of-factly. He made my friend Emma's older brother cry once. Lily! Evan felt his face go red. That was a completely different situation. What happened? Chloe asked, clearly trying not to smile. Emma's brother was bullying her at school, Lily explained, warming to her story, taking her lunch money and calling her names. So Dad invited him over for a conversation about respect and kindness. He didn't yell or anything, but Jake, that's the brother, came out looking like he'd seen a ghost. He never bothered Emma again. I simply explained the consequences of his actions, Evan said stiffly, in a very calm, rational manner. You made a 16-year-old boy cry with calm rationality? Chloe's eyes were dancing now. That's actually more impressive than yelling. He was a bully. Someone needed to say something. And you were the one who did. Chloe's expression had gone soft. Because you know what it's like to be on the receiving end. Evan shrugged, uncomfortable with the admiration in her voice. Every teacher should stand up for their students. But not every teacher does. You're a good father, Evan. A good person. You always were. The words sat between them, and Evan didn't know what to do with them. He wasn't used to compliments from Chloe Maddox, wasn't sure he trusted them. But she looked sincere, and that was somehow worse than if she'd been mocking him. Tell me about Nexus, Evan said, changing the subject because he needed to. What exactly does a $4.6 billion tech company do? Chloe accepted the redirection gracefully. We develop AI-driven solutions for supply chain management. Essentially, we help companies predict demand, optimize inventory, and reduce waste. It sounds boring when I explain it like that, but the impact is actually pretty significant. We've helped hospitals ensure they have critical medications in stock, helped food distributors reduce spoilage, things like that. That doesn't sound boring at all, Evan said, genuinely interested. That sounds like you're actually making a difference. We try. Though most days I'm in meetings about shareholder value and market position rather than the actual impact of our work. She paused. That's part of why I've been thinking about expanding our East Coast operations, getting back to the ground level, remembering why we do what we do. East Coast operations? Lily perked up. Like here? Actually, yes. There's a property about 20 minutes from here that would be perfect for a new headquarters. Better talent pool than Silicon Valley in some ways, and the cost of living is more reasonable for our employees. Evan's stomach did an odd flip. You're thinking of moving here? To our town. Not to the town exactly, but close by. Chloe's eyes found his, and there was a question in them. Would that be weird? I don't know, Evan said honestly. Maybe? It's not because of you, Chloe said quickly. I mean, not entirely. The business case makes sense. But I'd be lying if I said running into you tonight didn't make the idea more appealing. Lily was watching this exchange with fascination, her hot chocolate forgotten. This is a lot, Evan said. 2 hours ago, we hadn't spoken in 20 years. Now you're talking about moving across the country? I know, I'm getting ahead of myself. Chloe sat back in her chair. I do that. Always thinking 3 steps ahead. It drives my COO crazy. My dad is the opposite, Lily offered. He plans everything down to the minute. He has a color-coded calendar. It's called being organized, Evan protested weakly. It's called being a control freak, Lily said affectionately. But we love him anyway. Chloe laughed, and the sound filled the coffee shop in a way that made the other patrons look over with curiosity. I like you, Lily. You don't let your dad get away with anything. Someone has to keep him honest. Lily grinned. He gets all serious and teaches-y sometimes. I am a teacher. It's literally my job to be teachy. See? Lily looked at Chloe. He can't even hear it. Watching them interact, seeing Lily warm to Chloe, and Chloe respond with what seemed like genuine affection, Evan felt something in his chest loosen. Maybe this could work. Maybe people really could change. So tell me more about you, Chloe said, turning her attention back to Evan. What do you do when you're not teaching or being ambushed by old classmates at reunions? Mostly parenting, Evan gestured to Lily, which is a full-time job on top of the actual full-time job. Dad reads a lot, Lily said. Like a crazy amount. We have books everywhere in our apartment, even in the bathroom. A man after my own heart, Chloe said. What are you reading right now? Currently, I'm rereading East of Eden for about the 10th time, and I just started a biography of Frederick Douglass that one of my students recommended. Your students recommend books to you? The good ones do. They keep me honest. Make sure I'm not just teaching the same curriculum year after year without questioning it. Evan found himself relaxing, falling into the rhythm of conversation in a way he hadn't expected. Last year, a junior convinced me to add Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie to the reading list. Best decision I made all year. I love her work, Chloe said, and she sounded surprised to have something in common with him. I listened to Americana during a flight to Tokyo. Couldn't stop thinking about it for weeks. They talked about books then, and it was easier than Evan had anticipated. Chloe had read widely, literary fiction, biographies, even poetry, and had thoughtful opinions about what she'd read. They disagreed about Hemingway. She found him sparse and moving. Evan found him sparse and pretentious. Argued good-naturedly about whether The Great Gatsby was overrated, Yes, in Evan's opinion, absolutely not, in Chloe's, and discovered they both had a weakness for mystery novels they were slightly embarrassed about. I read romance novels, Lily announced during a lull in the conversation, the ones with kissing on the cover. You absolutely do not, Evan said, momentarily panicking. I'm kidding, Dad, relax. Lily rolled her eyes. I read fantasy books, with dragons and magic and stuff. Oh, thank God. Evan's heart rate returned to normal. Though Emma's older sister does let us look at her romance book sometimes, Lily added innocently. We're going to talk about this later, Evan said, making a mental note to have a conversation with Emma's sister. Chloe was trying very hard not to laugh. How old is Emma's sister? 19, Lily said. She's in college. She says romance novels are feminist literature. They can be, Chloe said diplomatically, shooting Evan an amused glance. But maybe stick with dragons for a few more years. That's what Dad says. He's very protective about what I read, and watch, and basically everything. But Lily said it with affection, leaning against Evan's chair in a way that suggested she didn't actually mind his overprotectiveness. Can I ask you something? Chloe directed the question at Lily. You seem very mature for 11. Was it hard growing up with just your dad? Evan tensed, ready to redirect if the question was too personal, but Lily considered it seriously. Sometimes, she said, I used to wish I had a mom like the other kids, someone to do mom stuff with. But Dad tries really hard. He learned to braid hair from YouTube videos, and he comes to all my school events even when he's tired, and he makes sure I know I'm loved every single day. She looked up at Evan. So no, it's not hard. It's not. It's just different. Evan felt his throat tighten. He reached over and squeezed Lily's hand. You make it easy, kiddo. Chloe's eyes were suspiciously bright. You're lucky to have each other. We are, Evan agreed. Then, because the moment was getting too heavy, he cleared his throat. So, what about you? Any kids? Husband? Partner? No, to all three. Chloe's voice was light, but there was something underneath it. I was engaged once, about 5 years ago. Another tech entrepreneur. We were going to merge our companies and our lives. Very romantic, right? What happened? I realized I was more in love with the idea of a merger than the actual person. We wanted different things. He wanted someone who would be the perfect tech wife, attend the right parties, say the right things, look good in photos. I wanted someone who saw me as a person, not a brand. She shrugged. So we called it off. It was amicable, but it was also lonely. I can imagine. And Evan could. He knew what it was like to feel alone even when you weren't technically alone. After that, I threw myself into work, built Nexus into what it is today, made my first billion, made my second billion, and realized that none of it mattered if I didn't have anyone to share it with. No family, no real friends, just colleagues and employees and people who wanted something from me. She looked at him. That's why tonight mattered so much, apologizing to you. It was a chance to start fixing things I broke, to maybe build something real. Building something real takes time, Evan said, and trust, which is earned, not bought. I know, I'm willing to put in the time. Chloe paused. If you'll let me. Evan looked at Lily, who was watching him with those perceptive eyes. She gave him a tiny nod, permission or maybe encouragement. His daughter, who had every reason to be suspicious of new people in their lives, was telling him it was okay to try. Okay, Evan said. Let's see where this goes, but we're taking it slow. Coffee dates, conversations. Getting to know each other as actual human beings instead of the cartoon versions we had in high school. Coffee dates, Chloe repeated, and her smile was radiant. I can work with that. They stayed at the Midnight Bean for another hour, conversation flowing more easily as the initial awkwardness faded. Chloe told them about her early days in Silicon Valley, living in a studio apartment and surviving on ramen while trying to pitch her first business idea. Evan shared stories about teaching, about the student who'd written an essay comparing Hamlet to a superhero movie and somehow made it work, about the year his entire junior class conspired to read a banned book as an act of rebellion. Lily, sensing she had a new audience, regaled Chloe with stories about her friends, her school, and a lengthy explanation of a video game Evan didn't understand, despite having watched her play it dozens of times. When they finally left the coffee shop, It was past 10 o'clock. The temperature had dropped, and Evan could see his breath in the air. Lily was yawning, the evening catching up with her, and Evan felt the familiar weight of exhaustion that came from social interaction. "I should get her home," Evan said. "School night tomorrow." "Of course." Chloe pulled her coat tighter around herself. "Thank you for giving me a chance. Both of you. It means more than you know." "You'll have to earn it," Evan reminded her, but his voice was gentler now. "I will. I promise." Chloe hesitated, then pulled out her phone. "Can I give you my number? Maybe we could do this again? Coffee, I mean, or dinner. Whatever you're comfortable with." Evan pulled out his own phone, a model 3 generations old with a cracked screen protector, and tried not to feel self-conscious as he typed in her information. "Okay, yeah, we can do that." They exchanged numbers, and Chloe looked at his phone with something that might have been recognition. "Is that the same phone you had at the reunion? I noticed it earlier." "Yeah, it works fine. No reason to replace it." Evan heard the defensiveness in his voice and hated it. "I wasn't criticizing. Actually, I think it's admirable. We live in such a disposable culture. People upgrade constantly, even when they don't need to." She smiled. "It's very you, practical and thoughtful." Evan didn't know what to say to that, so he just nodded. "Good night, Lily," Chloe said, crouching down to Lily's level. "It was lovely meeting you." "You too," Lily said. "Are you going to come have coffee with Dad again?" "If he'll let me." "He will," Lily said it with complete confidence. "He acts all grumpy, but he actually liked talking to you. I could tell." "Lily," Evan started, but she was already skipping toward their car, which was parked 2 blocks away. "She's something else," Chloe said, standing up. "She's too smart for her own good," Evan agreed. "Gets that from her mother." "I doubt that." Chloe's voice was soft. "I think she gets it from you." They stood there for a moment, 2 people who'd been strangers, then enemies, then strangers again, now trying to figure out what came next. The night air was cold, and somewhere nearby someone was playing piano. Clair de Lune drifting through an open window. "This is strange, isn't it?" Evan said. "All of this." "It is," Chloe agreed. "But maybe strange is okay. Maybe it's even good. Maybe." Evan shoved his hands in his pockets. "I should go. Lily's waiting." "Right, of course." Chloe stepped back. "Text me when you get home, just so I know you got there safely." "You don't have to worry about that." "I know, but I want to." She met his eyes. "Is that okay?" Evan thought about it, about what it meant to let someone worry about him, to let someone care. He'd been on his own for so long, handling everything himself, that the idea of sharing even a small burden felt foreign. But maybe it was time to try. "Okay," he said. "I'll text you." Her smile could have powered the entire city. "Good night, Evan." "Good night, Chloe." He walked to his car, where Lily was already buckled in and fighting to keep her eyes open. As he pulled away from the curb, he saw Chloe, in his rearview mirror, still standing under the streetlight, watching them go. "She's nice," Lily murmured, her voice heavy with sleep. "Different than I expected." "Yeah," Evan agreed. "She is." "Are you going to see her again?" "Maybe. If it feels right." "It feels right, Dad." Lily's eyes drifted closed. "Trust me." Evan drove through the quiet streets of his town, past darkened storefronts and houses with warm lights glowing in windows. He thought about the evening, about how it had started with dread and ended with something that felt cautiously hopeful. About Chloe's apology and her obvious loneliness. About the way she'd looked at Lily with genuine affection. About the conversation in the coffee shop that had felt natural and easy after the initial awkwardness. Maybe people could change. Maybe the person who'd hurt him at 17 wasn't the same person at 37. Maybe giving someone a second chance wasn't weakness, but wisdom. When they got home to their small apartment, 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, and a kitchen barely big enough for 1 person, Evan carried a sleeping Lily to her bed and tucked her in, brushing a kiss across her forehead. She murmured something he couldn't make out, already deep in dreams. He stood in her doorway for a moment, looking at this child who was simultaneously the easiest and hardest thing in his life. She deserved more than he could give her. A bigger home, nicer things, vacations beyond weekend camping trips. But she also deserved honesty and love and a father who showed up every day, and those things he could provide in abundance. In his own room, Evan changed into sweatpants and an old t-shirt, then sat on the edge of his bed with his phone in his hands. Chloe's number was there, waiting. He'd promised to text her. After a moment's hesitation, he typed, "Home safe. Thanks for the coffee." The response came almost immediately. "Thank you for taking a chance on me. Sleep well." Then a moment later, "And Evan, that thing I said at the reunion about regretting high school, I meant it, every word." Evan stared at the message, reading it twice, then a third time. Finally, he typed back, "I know. Good night, Chloe." He set the phone on his nightstand and lay back, staring at the ceiling with its familiar water stain in the corner. Outside, he could hear the distant sound of traffic, the bark of a neighbor's dog, the ordinary sounds of life continuing on. Something had shifted tonight. Some door had opened that he thought was permanently closed, and while he didn't know where it led, while he was still cautious and uncertain and maybe a little scared, he also felt something he hadn't felt in years. Possibility. And that, Evan thought as sleep finally pulled him under, was worth at least one more cup of coffee. The second coffee date happened 3 days later, this time without Lily. She had a sleepover at Emma's house, and Evan had found himself with a rare evening of freedom. When Chloe suggested meeting at a small Italian restaurant downtown, he'd hesitated for only a moment before agreeing. The restaurant was intimate without being romantic, with exposed brick walls and tables covered in red checkered cloths. Candles flickered in wine bottles that had been converted into holders, wax dripping down their sides in colorful layers that suggested years of use. The smell of garlic and basil filled the air, and Dean Martin crooned softly from speakers somewhere in the ceiling. Chloe was already there when Evan arrived, sitting at a corner table and looking at her phone with a slight frown. She'd traded the reunion dress for jeans and a cream-colored sweater, her hair pulled back in a loose ponytail. Without the armor of wealth and success, she looked younger, more approachable. "Sorry I'm late," Evan said, sliding into the chair across from her. "Traffic was worse than I expected." "You're not late. I was early." Chloe set her phone face down on the table. "Work crisis. My CTO is having a meltdown about our Q4 projections." "Do you need to deal with that?" "No, he can handle it. That's what I pay him for." She smiled, but Evan could see the tension in her shoulders. "Besides, I'm trying this new thing where I don't let work consume every moment of my life." "How's that going?" "Terribly. I checked my email 4 times in the parking lot before forcing myself to put my phone away." She laughed, but it sounded self-deprecating. "I'm not very good at relaxing." "Join the club. I grade papers in my sleep. Lily found me once with a red pen in my hand, correcting an imaginary essay about symbolism in Lord of the Flies." "That's actually adorable." "That's actually sad," Evan corrected, but he was smiling. "We're both workaholics, just different kinds." A waiter appeared with menus and a basket of warm bread that smelled like heaven. He rattled off the specials in rapid Italian-accented English, and Evan tried to follow along while simultaneously calculating which dishes fell within his budget. When the waiter left, he opened the menu and felt his stomach sink. The prices were higher than he'd anticipated. "Order whatever you want," Chloe said, as if reading his mind. "My treat." "We're not doing that again." Evan kept his voice firm. "I can pay for my own meal." "I know you can, but I invited you, so I'd like to pay. It's not about money, Evan. It's about wanting to do something nice." "Everything's about money when you don't have enough of it." The words came out sharper than he intended, and he saw Chloe flinch. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to make you uncomfortable." Evan took a breath, forcing himself to relax. "No, I'm sorry. That was defensive. It's hard sometimes. Being around someone who has so much when I'm constantly worrying about having enough." "I understand." Chloe's voice was soft. "More than you might think. My parents had money, but it was always conditional, always tied to expectations and control. Sometimes having money is its own kind of trap." "Maybe, but I'd still rather have it than not." "Fair enough." Chloe closed her menu. "How about this? We split the bill. That way neither of us feels uncomfortable." Evan considered this, then nodded. "Okay, that works." They ordered spaghetti carbonara for Evan, chicken piccata for Chloe. And the waiter brought wine that Chloe had selected from a list Evan couldn't have deciphered if his life depended on it. The first sip was smooth and rich, and he found himself relaxing despite his earlier tension. "Tell me about your day," Chloe said, breaking off a piece of bread. "What's it like teaching high school English?" "Chaotic, exhausting, occasionally transcendent." Evan took a sip of wine. "Today I had a student, Marcus, sharp kid but struggles with writing, turn in an essay about the Scarlet Letter that made me actually tear up. He connected Hester Prynne's isolation to his own experience as one of the few black students in a predominantly white school. It was honest and vulnerable, and exactly the kind of critical thinking I try to encourage." "That sounds amazing." It was. And then in the next period, I had a girl tell me that reading was pointless because everything important was on TikTok. He shook his head. "It's a roller coaster." "But you love it." "Most days, there are moments when I want to quit, when the bureaucracy and the testing and the parents who think their child's C is somehow my fault make me want to walk away. But then a kid like Marcus reminds me why I started teaching in the first place." "Which was?" Evan paused, considering. "Because I remember what it felt like to be 17 and confused and angry at the world. I remember teachers who saw something in me that I couldn't see in myself, who told me I was smart, that I mattered, that my future wasn't predetermined by my bank account. I want to be that person for other kids." Chloe was quiet for a moment, her eyes fixed on his face. "You're a good person, Evan Carver. You always were. I'm really not. I'm petty and judgmental, and I hold grudges." He gestured between them. "Case in point, I spent 20 years resenting you. You had every right to resent me. Maybe, but it didn't make me a better person. It just made me bitter." Evan took another sip of wine. "I think that's what scared me about seeing you again. Not that you'd hurt me, but that I'd realize I'd let that hurt define me for 2 decades. "And did you? Let it define you?" "I don't know yet." Evan met her eyes. "I'm still figuring that out." Their food arrived and they ate in companionable silence for a few minutes. The pasta was perfect, creamy and rich without being heavy, and Evan found himself savoring each bite in a way he rarely did with his usual dinners of leftovers and takeout. "Can I ask you something?" Chloe said, twirling pasta on her fork. "About Lily's mother. You don't have to answer if it's too personal." Evan tensed, then forced himself to relax. If they were going to build something, friendship or otherwise, they needed to be honest with each other. "What do you want to know?" "What happened? You said she left when Lily was 3. "She did." Evan set down his fork, his appetite suddenly gone. "Her name was Rebecca. We met in college, got married too young, had Lily even younger. I thought we were happy, but apparently I was the only one who felt that way. One day I came home from my student teaching placement and found a note on the kitchen table. She'd taken her clothes, her laptop, and about half our savings. Said she wasn't ready to be a mother, that she'd made a mistake, that she needed to find herself." "Jesus, Evan, I'm so sorry." "The worst part wasn't that she left. It was that she never looked back. Never called to check on Lily, never sent a birthday card or a Christmas present, just completely erased us from her life like we'd never existed." He picked up his wine glass, needing something to do with his hands. "Lily asks about her sometimes. Wants to know why her mom didn't love her enough to stay. And I don't have a good answer because I don't understand it myself." "How do you handle those questions?" "Badly." Evan laughed, but it sounded hollow. "I tell her that sometimes people aren't ready for the responsibilities they take on. That her mom leaving was about her mom's issues, not about Lily. That she's loved and wanted and enough exactly as she is. I don't know if she believes me." "She does," Chloe said with certainty. "Anyone can see how much you love her, how much you've sacrificed to give her a good life." "I haven't sacrificed anything. She's my daughter. Taking care of her isn't a sacrifice. It's just what you do." "Not everyone does it, though. Not everyone shows up day after day putting their child's needs first." Chloe's voice had gone soft. "My parents had all the money in the world, but they were never really there. Too busy with their careers, their social obligations, their affairs. I spent most of my childhood with nannies and tutors. Money doesn't make you a good parent. Being present does." "Is that why you were so angry in high school? Because of your parents?" Partially. I was drowning, and I didn't know how to ask for help, so I lashed out instead. Made other people feel as small as I felt. She pushed food around her plate. The bullying was a way to feel powerful when everything else in my life was chaos. Not an excuse, just an explanation. Did it help? Making other people miserable? In the moment, yes. It felt good to have control over something, even if that control was just making Evan Carver's life hell. She looked up at him, her eyes bright with unshed tears. But long term? No. It made me into someone I'm ashamed of, someone I've spent the last 15 years trying not to be. Who are you now? Evan asked. When you're not being a tech billionaire, who is Chloe Maddox? She considered the question seriously. I'm someone who works too much and sleeps too little. Someone who has 100 acquaintances but no real friends. Someone who achieved everything she thought she wanted and realized it wasn't enough. She paused. I'm lonely, Evan. Desperately, bone-achingly lonely. And sitting here with you, having an actual conversation with someone who sees me as a person instead of a bank account or a business opportunity is the most real I've felt in years. The honesty of it hit Evan like a physical blow. He'd expected small talk, surface-level revelations, the careful dance of two people getting to know each other. He hadn't expected this raw vulnerability from someone who'd spent their teenage years projecting invincibility. I get it, he said quietly. The loneliness. It's different when you have a kid. Lily keeps me company, keeps me grounded. But there are nights after she goes to bed when the apartment feels too empty and too quiet, and I wonder if this is all there is. Work and parenting and surviving until the next day. Is that enough for you? Just surviving? Some days yes, some days no. Evan picked up his fork again, needing the distraction. I want more. Want to feel alive instead of just going through the motions. Want to laugh without feeling guilty about it. Want to connect with another adult who understands the weight of everything I'm carrying. But wanting and having are different things. They don't have to be. Chloe reached across the table, her hand hovering near his but not quite touching. We could help each other. Be less lonely together. Is that what this is? Two lonely people trying to fill a void? Maybe. Or maybe it's two people who have history, complicated, messy history, trying to build something better. Something real. Evan looked at her hand so close to his and felt the pull of possibility. It would be easy to take that hand, to let himself fall into whatever this was becoming. But easy had never been his style, and he'd learned through hard experience that things built quickly often collapsed just as fast. I need to take this slow, he said, for Lily's sake and for mine. I can't rush into something just because it feels good in the moment. I understand. Chloe pulled her hand back and Evan felt an irrational flash of disappointment. Slow is good. Slow is smart. They finished their meal talking about safer topics, books they'd read, movies they'd seen, the weird quirks of their respective workplaces. Chloe told him about a board meeting where an investor had fallen asleep and started snoring during her presentation. Evan told her about the time a student had brought an emotional support chicken to class and it had escaped, causing chaos throughout the entire English wing. By the time dessert arrived, tiramisu they'd agreed to split, the tension had eased back into something comfortable. Chloe told terrible jokes that made Evan laugh despite himself, and he found himself sharing stories about Lily that he usually kept private, protective as he was of his daughter's privacy. She sounds incredible, Chloe said, taking the last bite of tiramisu. You've raised an amazing kid. She raised herself, mostly. I just tried not to screw her up too badly. You're too hard on yourself. Someone has to be. If I'm not, who will be? Evan smiled to show he was half joking, but Chloe's expression turned serious. That's a lonely way to live, Evan. Constantly judging yourself, never giving yourself credit for everything you do right. Says the woman who built a multi-billion-dollar company and still thinks she hasn't accomplished enough. Touché. Chloe raised her wine glass in acknowledgement. We're both our own worst critics. Probably why we're sitting here commiserating over Italian food instead of outliving our best lives. I don't know. This feels pretty good to me. Chloe's voice had gone soft again. Better than any board meeting or product launch or magazine interview I've done. The check arrived, and they split it as agreed. though Evan noticed Chloe left a tip that was probably more than his half of the meal. They walked out into the cool November night, and Evan realized he wasn't ready for the evening to end. "Want to walk for a bit?" he heard himself ask. "There's a park a few blocks from here." "I'd like that." They walked side by side down the quiet downtown streets, past closed boutiques, and the occasional bar with music spilling out into the night. The park was small but well maintained, with paths that wound through carefully tended gardens and a pond that reflected the streetlights like scattered stars. "I used to come here with Lily when she was little," Evan said as they followed one of the paths. "She'd feed the ducks and demand I push her on the swings until my arms fell off." "Does she still like swings?" "Pretends she doesn't. Says she's too old for that kind of thing. But last month I caught her at the playground near our apartment, swinging as high as she could with this huge smile on her face." He smiled at the memory. "She's at that age where she's trying to figure out if she's a kid or not. Wants to be grown up, but isn't quite ready to let go of childhood." "That must be hard, watching her grow up." "It's terrifying. Every year she gets more independent, needs me a little less. I know that's the goal, raise her to not need me, but knowing it doesn't make it easier." They reached a bench overlooking the pond and sat down. The temperature had dropped further, and Evan could see his breath in the air. Chloe pulled her coat tighter around herself, shivering slightly. "Here," Evan said, starting to shrug off his jacket. "Don't you dare, you'll freeze." But she was smiling. "Very chivalrous, though. My mother raised me right. Even if she couldn't give me much else, she made sure I had manners." "Tell me about her, your mom." Evan leaned back against the bench, looking up at the sky where a few stars managed to shine through the light pollution. "She worked 3 jobs to keep us afloat after my dad left. Waitress, house cleaner, night shift at the hospital. I barely saw her growing up because she was always working, always exhausted, but she never complained. Never made me feel like I was a burden." "Where is she now?" "She passed away my second year of teaching. Heart attack. The doctor said it was from years of stress and overwork." His voice had gone flat, emotionless, in the way it always did when he talked about his mother's death. "She never got to retire, never got to relax. Spent her whole life working herself to death so I could have opportunities she never had." "Evan." Chloe's hand found his in the darkness, and this time he didn't pull away. "I'm so sorry." "She met Lily, though. Got 2 years with her granddaughter before she died. Those were good years. She'd babysit while I was at work, and I'd come home to find them baking cookies or reading together. Lily doesn't remember her. Not really, but I do. Every day I try to live up to the example she set." They sat in silence for a while, Chloe's hand warm in his, and Evan felt something shift. This wasn't just two people making small talk anymore. This was real vulnerability, real connection. He was letting Chloe see parts of himself he usually kept hidden, and instead of using them against him, she was holding them gently. "Thank you for telling me that," Chloe said finally. "For trusting me with something so personal." "Yeah, well, you shared your stuff, seemed only fair." "Is that what we're doing? Trading vulnerabilities like baseball cards?" "Maybe. Or maybe we're just two people trying to be honest with each other for once." He turned to look at her, her face illuminated by the streetlight. "I spent so many years thinking you were the villain of my story. But you're just a person, complicated and flawed and trying your best, like everyone else." "I want to be better, though. Better than I was. Better than I am." She squeezed his hand. "And being around you makes me want to try harder. Don't put that on me. I'm barely holding my own life together. I can't be responsible for fixing yours, too." "I'm not asking you to fix me. I'm asking you to be my friend, to hold me accountable, to call me out when I'm being the person I used to be instead of the person I'm trying to become." "That's a lot of pressure." "I know. And if it's too much, I understand. You don't owe me anything, Evan. Not forgiveness, not friendship, not a second chance. But I'm asking anyway, because sitting here with you feels like the first real thing I've experienced in years, and I don't want to lose it." Evan thought about it, about what it meant to let someone in, to give them the power to hurt you again, about whether people really could change or if they were doomed to repeat the same patterns forever, about his mother, who'd believed in second chances right up until her heart gave out from the strain of all those opportunities she'd given others. But he also thought about Lily, who trusted his judgment about people, about Marcus, His student who'd written with such raw honesty about second chances and redemption. About himself at 17, desperate for someone to see past his circumstances to who he really was. Okay, he said, friends. But Chloe, if you hurt Lily, if you hurt me again, there won't be a third chance. I need you to understand that. I do. And I won't. I promise you, Evan, I won't. Her eyes were fierce in the darkness. I'm done being that person. Done hurting people because I'm hurting. Done using money and success to hide the fact that I'm just as scared and lost as everyone else. Everyone's scared and lost. That's just life. Maybe. But we don't have to be alone while we figure it out. They stayed on that bench for another hour, talking about everything and nothing. Chloe told him about her plans for the East Coast headquarters, and Evan was surprised to find himself genuinely interested in the logistics of building a tech company. He told her about his dream of writing a book someday, a dream he'd shelved years ago but never quite forgotten. She didn't dismiss it or tell him it was too late, just asked what he'd write about and listened intently to his answer. When they finally walked back to their cars, Evan felt lighter than he had in months, maybe years. It was strange, this feeling of connection with someone who'd once represented everything painful about his past. But it was also liberating, like he'd been carrying a weight he didn't know he could put down. Can I see you again? Chloe asked as they reached her car, a sleek black Tesla that probably cost more than Evan would make in 5 years. Yeah, I'd like that. And he meant it. What about Lily? Could I maybe take you both to dinner or to a movie? I'd really like to spend more time with her. Evan hesitated, protective instincts flaring, but then he thought about Lily's words. It feels right, Dad, and decided to trust his daughter's judgment. Let me talk to her first, make sure she's comfortable with it. But if she is, then yes. Thank you. Chloe looked like he'd given her something precious. For everything tonight, for giving me a chance. Don't thank me yet. I'm still deciding if this was a good idea or a terrible mistake. And when will you know? I'll let you know when I figure it out. She laughed, and the sound was warm and genuine. Fair enough. Drive safe, Evan. You too. He watched her drive away, her taillights disappearing into the night, before climbing into his own car, a 10-year-old Honda with a dent in the passenger door and an air freshener that had stopped working months ago. The contrast between their vehicles was stark, a reminder of the vast distance between their worlds. But for a few hours tonight, that distance had seemed surmountable. They'd just been two people talking, laughing, sharing pieces of themselves they usually kept hidden. And maybe, Evan thought as he started the ignition, that was enough to build on. His phone buzzed as he pulled out of the parking space. A text from Chloe. Best night I've had in years. Thank you for being you. Evan smiled and typed back. Same. Talk tomorrow? Absolutely. Good night, Evan. Good night, Chloe. He drove home through empty streets, his mind replaying moments from the evening. The way she'd laughed at his jokes. The vulnerability in her eyes when she'd talked about her loneliness. The warmth of her hand in his on that park bench. The feeling that maybe, just maybe, he'd found someone who understood what it was like to carry more than you could handle and keep going anyway. When he got home, he found a message from Emma's mom confirming that Lily was having a great time and would be dropped off tomorrow morning. The apartment felt empty without his daughter's presence, but for once it didn't feel oppressively lonely. Evan made himself a cup of tea and sat on his worn couch, thinking about second chances and new beginnings, thinking about how a night that had started with dread had transformed into something that felt like hope. Thinking about Chloe Maddox, not the billionaire tech mogul or the high school bully, but the woman who'd sat across from him at dinner and been so achingly honest about her pain. His phone buzzed again. Another text from Chloe. I know I already said goodnight, but I can't stop thinking about our conversation. About you. Is that weird? Please tell me that's not weird. Evan felt something warm bloom in his chest. He typed back, Not weird. I'm thinking about you too. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Then, I really want to make this work. Whatever this is, I know it's complicated and messy and probably a terrible idea, but I want to try. So do I, Evan wrote back. Scared, but willing to try. Scared is good. Means we're taking it seriously. Scared is terrifying, But I'm doing it anyway. That's called bravery, Evan. Or stupidity. Jury's still out. He could almost hear her laugh through the phone. Either way, I'm glad you're doing it. Sleep well. You too. Evan set his phone down and finished his tea, feeling the exhaustion of the evening finally catch up with him. But it was a good exhaustion, the kind that came from actually living instead of just surviving, from taking a risk instead of playing it safe, from opening a door he thought was permanently closed and finding something unexpected on the other side. As he brushed his teeth and got ready for bed, Evan thought about what he'd tell Lily in the morning. She'd want details about his evening with Chloe, would ask questions with that perceptive edge that saw through any deflection. He'd tell her the truth, that it had been good, that Chloe was trying to be different, that maybe they could build something real. And if Lily was comfortable with it, they'd have dinner together. The three of them. The beginning of something new. Evan lay in bed staring at the ceiling, and for the first time in a very long time, he fell asleep with a smile on his face and hope in his heart. The future was uncertain, as it always was. But for once, that uncertainty didn't feel like a threat. It felt like possibility. The morning sunlight streamed through Evan's bedroom window, warming his face until he finally opened his eyes. For a moment, he lay there in that space between sleep and waking, feeling unusually rested. Then he remembered the night before, dinner with Chloe, their conversation in the park, the texts afterward, and felt that same warm bloom of hope he'd fallen asleep with. His phone showed 3 new messages, 2 from Chloe, sent early this morning, and 1 from Emma's mom saying she was bringing Lily home in an hour. Evan opened Chloe's messages first. Good morning. I know it's early, but I couldn't sleep. Keep thinking about last night. About you. Is it too soon to say I miss talking to you? The second message had come 10 minutes later. That was probably too much. Ignore me. I'm not good at this. Evan smiled and typed back. Not too much. And I miss talking to you too. Coffee later? The response came almost immediately. Yes. But what about Lily? You said you wanted to talk to her first. I do. After I talk to her, I'll let you know. Maybe we could all have lunch? I'd love that. Let me know. Evan got up and showered, still feeling the pleasant buzz of new connection. He made coffee and was scrambling eggs when he heard the front door open and Lily's voice calling out, Dad, I'm home! In the kitchen! Lily bounded in, her overnight bag slung over one shoulder, her hair in 2 braids that Emma's mom had probably done because they were far neater than anything Evan could manage. She looked happy and well-rested, and Evan felt a pang of gratitude for Emma's family and their willingness to include Lily in their lives. Did you have fun? He asked, sliding eggs onto a plate for her. So much fun. We watched movies, and Emma's sister taught us how to do makeup, and we stayed up until midnight talking. She climbed onto a stool at their small kitchen counter. How was your date? It wasn't a date. It was dinner. With the lady from the reunion. That's a date, Dad. It was 2 people having a meal and conversation. That's literally the definition of a date. Lily picked up her fork, grinning. So, how was it? Evan poured himself more coffee, buying time. It was good. Really good, actually. Chloe she's different than I expected. More real. I told you she was nice. You did, and you were right. He sat down across from her. She wants to have lunch with us today, all 3 of us. What do you think about that? Lily took a bite of eggs, chewing thoughtfully. Does she want to be your girlfriend? What? No, I don't know. We're just getting to know each other right now. But you like her. Like her. Evan felt heat creep up his neck. When did you become a relationship expert? I watch a lot of TV. Lily grinned. And I see the way you smile when you text her. You never smile at your phone unless it's me or Grandma's old videos. The observation was so accurate it made Evan's chest tighten. He'd watched those videos of his mother more times than he could count, usually late at night when the apartment felt too quiet, and he missed her so much it hurt. Okay, fine. I like her. But that doesn't mean anything has to change between us. You're still my priority. You always will be. I know that, Dad. Lily's voice went soft. But you're allowed to be happy too. You're allowed to have someone besides me. I have you, that's enough. But what about when I go to college? What about when I'm grown up and have my own life? You'll be alone. Lily, you're 11. I'm not worried about empty nest syndrome yet. I'm just saying, it's okay if you want to date Chloe. I like her. She seems like she really cares about you. Evan studied his daughter, this impossibly perceptive child who sometimes seemed older than her years. You're sure you're okay with this? With me spending time with her? I'm sure. As long as she's nice to you. If she's mean, I'll kick her shin. Lily! What? I'm protective. You taught me that. She finished her eggs and hopped off the stool. So, what time is lunch? I'll text her and find out. Go get cleaned up first. Lily skipped off to her room, and Evan pulled out his phone to message Chloe. Lily says yes to lunch. What time works for you? Noon? There's a great burger place downtown, very casual, perfect for 11-year-olds and nervous fathers. Evan smiled at that. Sounds good. See you there. Evan, thank you for including me. It means everything. He stared at the message for a long moment before replying. Don't thank me yet. Lily's already planning to kick your shin if you're mean to me. I would expect nothing less. She's a good daughter. The best. 3 hours later, they walked into Bernie's Burgers, a local institution that had been serving the same menu for 40 years. Red vinyl booths lined the walls, and the smell of grilling meat and fresh-cut fries made Evan's stomach growl despite his nervous energy. Chloe was already there, sitting in a corner booth and looking decidedly un-billionaire-like in jeans and a sweater with her hair in a messy bun. She stood when she saw them, and Evan noticed her hands were trembling slightly. She was nervous. The realization made him feel better about his own anxiety. Hi, Chloe said, her smile warm but uncertain. Thanks for coming. Thanks for inviting us. Evan slid into the booth across from her, and Lily climbed in beside him. This place is cool, Lily said, looking around at the vintage decor. How did you find it? Online research. I wanted somewhere authentic, not some chain restaurant. Chloe handed them menus. The reviews said this place has the best burgers in town, and milkshakes that could put you in a sugar coma. I like her already, Lily whispered to Evan, loud enough that Chloe definitely heard. They ordered a bacon cheeseburger for Evan, a mushroom Swiss for Chloe, and a regular cheeseburger for Lily, with a chocolate milkshake that arrived in a glass so large it looked cartoonish. The conversation started tentatively, all three of them feeling out the dynamic, but gradually relaxed as they found their rhythm. Chloe asked Lily about school, and Lily launched into an enthusiastic explanation of her current science project about renewable energy. Chloe listened with genuine interest, asking questions that showed she was actually paying attention, not just being polite. When Lily mentioned she was struggling with the math portion, Chloe offered to help. I minored in applied mathematics, Chloe explained. It's actually what led me to tech. I loved finding elegant solutions to complex problems. Could you really help? Lily's eyes were wide. Dad's good at English, but math makes him cranky. It does not make me cranky. Dad, you literally threw a pencil at the wall last week when you were trying to help me with fractions. That pencil was defective. Chloe laughed, and it was the real laugh, not the practiced one. I would love to help, if your dad's okay with it. Evan found himself nodding before he'd fully processed the offer. Yeah, sure, that would be great. Can we do it at your place? Lily asked Chloe. I bet you have a really cool house. Lily, that's rude. It's fine, Chloe interrupted. And actually, I'm staying at a hotel right now. I don't have a place here yet. I've been looking at properties, but nothing's felt right. You could come to our apartment, Lily offered. It's small, but it's cozy. Dad says cozy is just another word for cramped, but I think it's nice. I would love that. Chloe looked at Evan. If that's okay with you? It's not much, Evan warned. 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, and a kitchen the size of a closet. Sounds perfect. Their food arrived, and they ate while continuing to talk. Chloe told them about growing up in Connecticut, about boarding schools and holidays spent with nannies instead of parents. Lily talked about her friends at school, about the book series she was reading where kids discovered they had magic powers. Evan found himself relaxing, watching his daughter and this woman who'd once made his life hell share French fries and laugh at each other's jokes. Can I ask you something? Lily said to Chloe, her expression turning serious. Why were you mean to my dad in high school? Evan tensed, but Chloe didn't flinch from the question. Because I was unhappy, and I took it out on people who didn't deserve it, Chloe said simply. Your dad was smart and kind and genuine, and that made me angry because I felt like I was none of those things. So I tried to make him feel as small as I felt. That was mean. It was. It was very mean, and I'm not proud of it. I've spent a lot of years wishing I could go back and do things differently. But you can't go back, Lily said, with the blunt honesty of children. So what are you going to do now? I'm going to try to be better, to be the kind of person who builds people up instead of tearing them down. And I'm going to hope that your dad and you will give me a chance to prove I've changed. Lily considered this, taking a long sip of her milkshake. Okay, but if you're mean to him again, I really will kick your shin. Deal. Chloe held out her hand and Lily shook it solemnly. Evan felt something in his chest loosen. Whatever this was between him and Chloe, Lily had just given her blessing. Not unconditionally, his daughter was too smart for that, but conditionally, which was more than he'd expected. After lunch, they walked through downtown, window shopping and talking. Chloe stopped at a bookstore and insisted on buying Lily the next 3 books in her fantasy series despite Evan's protests. At a toy store, she found a complex science kit about solar energy and added it to her purchases. You don't have to buy her things, Evan said quietly while Lily was examining a display of model rockets. She doesn't expect that. I know, but I want to. Is that okay? As long as you're not trying to buy her affection. I'm not. I promise. Chloe watched Lily with a soft expression. I never had anyone do things like this for me when I was her age. No one who bought me books just because I liked reading, or science kits just because I was curious. I had money, but not thoughtfulness. And I want to give her something I never had. Evan felt his throat tighten. Okay. But Chloe, she needs consistency more than gifts. If you're going to be in her life, you have to actually be in it, not just when it's convenient. I understand, and I will be, I promise. They ended up at a park. A different one from the night before, this one with a playground where Lily immediately ran to the swings despite her earlier insistence that she was too old for such things. Evan and Chloe sat on a bench nearby, watching her soar higher and higher, her laughter carried on the wind. She's wonderful, Chloe said. You've done an amazing job with her. She's done an amazing job with herself. I just tried not to mess her up too badly. Stop selling yourself short. She's confident and kind and curious because you taught her to be those things. Evan watched his daughter, her braids flying as she pumped her legs, and felt a familiar surge of love mixed with terror. I'm so scared all the time. Scared I'm not doing enough, not giving her enough. Scared she'll grow up and realize I failed her somehow. You're not failing her. Anyone can see that. Can they? Because some days I feel like I'm barely keeping it together. Like I'm one unexpected expense away from everything falling apart. Chloe was quiet for a moment. Can I ask you something? And I want you to be honest with me. Okay? Are you struggling financially? Like, really struggling? Evan felt himself tense. Why do you ask? Because I see things. The way you checked the menu prices at the restaurant last night. The way you hesitated before letting me buy Lily books. The crack in your phone screen, your car. She turned to face him. I'm not judging. I'm asking because I want to understand your life, what you deal with every day. I'm fine. We're fine. Evan, he sighed, running a hand through his hair. Okay, fine. Yes. Money is tight. It's always tight. Teaching doesn't pay great, and raising a kid is expensive. I've got student loans from college that I'm still paying off. Medical bills from when Lily broke her arm last year. I'm behind on my car payment, and the check engine light has been on for months because I can't afford to fix whatever's wrong with it. The words came out in a rush, and once he started, he couldn't stop. I shop at thrift stores not because it's trendy or eco-friendly, but because I can't afford retail. I cut my own hair in Lily's because salon visits are a luxury we don't have. We're not homeless or starving, but we're always one emergency away from disaster. Thank you for telling me. Chloe's voice was gentle. That must be exhausting. It is, but it's also just life. Millions of people deal with this every day. That doesn't make it less hard for you. No, but it means I don't get to complain about it. Why not? Why don't you get to acknowledge that things are difficult? Evan looked at her, this woman who'd probably never worried about money a day in her life, and felt a flash of the old resentment. But then he saw the genuine concern in her eyes and realized she wasn't being condescending. She was trying to understand. Because complaining doesn't change anything, he said. And because Lily is watching. I don't want her to grow up thinking we're poor or struggling. I want her to see that we have enough, that we're happy with what we have. Are you happy with what you have? Most days. I have Lily. I have a job I mostly love. We have a roof over our heads and food on the table. That's more than a lot of people have. But you deserve more than just survival. You deserve to thrive. Maybe. But deserve doesn't pay the bills. Chloe opened her mouth, then closed it again. Evan could practically see her biting back whatever she'd been about to say, and he was grateful. He didn't need her money or her pity, didn't need her trying to solve problems that weren't hers to fix. I'm sorry, Chloe said finally, for all of it. For high school, obviously, but also for having so much when you have so little, for not understanding what it's like to worry about money. You don't need to apologize for being successful. Maybe not, but I can acknowledge the disparity, the unfairness of it. She was quiet for a moment. I grew up with money, but I was miserable. You grew up without it, but you seem content. Not always happy, but content. Like you figured out what actually matters. What matters is over there on that swing. Evan nodded toward Lily. Everything else is just noise. I envy that, the clarity of it. It's easy to have clarity when you don't have choices. When your entire life is focused on keeping one small person safe and happy, the priorities sort themselves out. They sat in comfortable silence, watching Lily move from the swings to the monkey bars. A father with 2 younger children arrived at the playground, and Evan watched as Lily immediately helped one of them reach the first rung, patient and encouraging. His heart swelled with pride. Can I tell you something? Chloe asked. About the East Coast headquarters? Sure. It's not just a business decision. I mean, it is. The location makes sense, the talent pool is good, the costs are reasonable. But the real reason I'm doing it is because I'm trying to build something different. Something that isn't just about profit margins and shareholder value. What do you mean? I want to create a company culture that actually cares about people, that pays living wages and offers real work-life balance, that invests in the community instead of just extracting value from it. She pulled her knees up to her chest, looking younger than her 37 years. Everyone in Silicon Valley thinks I'm crazy. My board is fighting me on it. But I keep thinking about my employees, about people like you, who work so hard and still struggle. And I think, what's the point of having all this money if I can't use it to make things better? That's very idealistic. Is it? Or is it just decent? In today's economy, it's revolutionary. Evan turned to look at her. But Chloe, you can't save everyone. You can't fix systemic inequality by yourself. I know, but I can fix it for the people who work for me. I can create something that proves it's possible to be successful and ethical. She met his eyes. And maybe, if enough people do the same thing, we can start to change the system. You really believe that? I have to. Otherwise, what am I doing with my life? Just accumulating wealth for its own sake? That's not enough anymore. Evan felt something shift in his perception of her. This wasn't just guilt or performative charity. This was someone genuinely trying to use their privilege to make things better. It might be naive, might even fail, but the intention was sincere. For what it's worth, he said, I think that's admirable, even if your board thinks you're crazy. They definitely think I'm crazy. My CFO had a minor breakdown when I told him I wanted to cap executive salaries and use the difference to raise entry-level wages. She laughed. But I don't care. I didn't build this company to make rich people richer. I built it to create something meaningful. And is it meaningful? It's getting there. Still a lot of work to do. But yes, it's starting to feel like something I can be proud of. Lily ran over, slightly out of breath and beaming. Did you see me on the monkey bars? I made it all the way across. I saw, Evan said. Very impressive. Chloe, do you know how to do monkey bars? I used to. It's been a while, though. Come try. Lily grabbed Chloe's hand and pulled her toward the playground. Evan watched as Chloe gamely attempted the monkey bars, making it halfway across before her arms gave out, and she dropped to the ground with a laugh. Lily showed her the proper technique, and Chloe tried again, this time making it 3/4 of the way. They were laughing together, and Evan felt something warm settle in his chest. This was nice, this feeling of watching two people he cared about, because he was starting to care about Chloe, despite his better judgment, enjoying each other's company. It felt like family in a way his small unit of two hadn't felt in a long time. His phone buzzed with an email notification. The school district announcing mandatory budget cuts. His stomach sank as he read the details. Reduced funding for classroom supplies, larger class sizes, and a hiring freeze that meant he'd be taking on extra students next semester without additional compensation. Bad news? Chloe had returned to the bench, slightly out of breath from her playground adventures. Just work stuff, budget cuts. Nothing I haven't dealt with before. How bad? Bad enough that I'll be buying my own supplies again this year and teaching classes of 35 instead of 25. He pocketed his phone. Like I said, nothing new. That's ridiculous. Teachers shouldn't have to buy their own supplies. And yet we do. Every year. Evan tried to keep the bitterness out of his voice. The system is broken, but we work within it anyway because what's the alternative? Quit? Let the kids suffer. There has to be something, Chloe started, but Evan cut her off. Don't. Please don't try to fix this. This isn't your problem to solve. But if I could help. Chloe. Evan's voice was firm. I appreciate the impulse, I do. But I don't need you to rescue me. I need you to just be here. As a friend. Not as a billionaire trying to throw money at problems. She looked hurt, but nodded. You're right. I'm sorry. I have this habit of trying to solve everything with resources instead of just listening. It's okay. I know you mean well. Dad, Chloe, come push me on the merry-go-round. They spent another hour at the playground, taking turns pushing Lily on various equipment and pretending to be pirates on the climbing structure. By the time they left, all three of them were laughing and slightly sweaty despite the November chill. This was really fun, Lily said as they walked back to their cars. Can we do it again? I'd like that, Chloe said, looking at Evan for confirmation. Yeah, we can do it again. What about this weekend? I'm free Saturday. Chloe caught herself. Unless you have plans, I don't want to be pushy. Saturday works. Maybe we could show you around town, the parts tourists don't usually see. I would love that. They said their goodbyes in the parking lot, and Evan watched Chloe drive away in her Tesla before turning to his own battered Honda. Lily was already buckled in, watching him with that knowing expression. She really likes you, Lily said as he started the car. She's trying to make amends for high school. Dad, she likes you, like, romantically. Lily, and you like her too. I can tell. Evan pulled out of the parking lot, not wanting to have this conversation while driving, but knowing Lily wouldn't let it go. It's complicated. Why? Because she's rich and I'm not. Because we come from completely different worlds. Because getting involved with her could change everything about our life, and I don't know if I'm ready for that. But you're lonely. The blunt statement hit Evan like a physical blow. What? You're lonely, Dad. I hear you at night sometimes after I go to bed, watching videos of Grandma, sitting in the quiet. You think I don't notice, but I do? Evan's hands tightened on the steering wheel. Lily, it's okay to want someone, to want more than just me. I'm not enough, and that's okay. You are enough. You're more than enough. I'm your daughter. That's different than having a partner, someone to share things with. Lily's voice was gentle, too mature for her 11 years. Chloe makes you smile. Real smiles, not the ones you do for me when you're tired or sad, and I think you should let yourself be happy. Evan had to pull over. He couldn't drive and process this conversation at the same time. He pulled into a grocery store parking lot and turned to face his daughter, this incredible person he somehow managed to raise. When did you get so wise? He asked, his voice rough with emotion. I learned from the best. Lily unbuckled and leaned over to hug him. I just want you to be happy, Dad. Really happy, not just okay. Evan held his daughter and felt tears prick his eyes. I am happy. You make me happy. I know. But there's room for more, don't you think? He pulled back to look at her. What if it doesn't work out? What if she hurts me again? Then I'll kick her shin like I promised, and we'll eat ice cream and watch movies and remember that we're okay, just the two of us. Lily smiled. But what if it does work out? What if she makes you happy and we get to be a family? Isn't that worth the risk? You're 11. You shouldn't be giving your father relationship advice. Someone has to. You're hopeless at this. Despite everything, Evan laughed. I really am, aren't I? It's okay, I'll help you. Lily settled back into her seat. Now, can we go home? I want to start reading my new books. Evan started the car again, but his mind was spinning. Lily was right. He was lonely. Had been lonely for years, filling the empty spaces with work and parenting and anything that kept him from acknowledging the ache of it. And Chloe was offering him something he thought he'd never have again. Connection, understanding, the possibility of more. It was terrifying. But maybe, as Lily said, it was worth the risk. That evening, after Lily was in bed with one of her new books, Evan sat on his couch with his phone in his hands. He'd been composing and deleting messages to Chloe for the past 20 minutes, unable to find the right words. Finally, he just wrote, "Thank you for today. Lily had a great time. So did I." The response came quickly. "Best day I've had in ages. Your daughter is incredible. You both are." Evan stared at the message, then typed, "Can I be honest with you about something? Always. I'm scared of this, whatever this is. I'm scared of getting hurt, scared of Lily getting hurt, scared that we're from such different worlds that it can't possibly work." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Then, "I'm scared too. Terrified, actually. Because I care about you and Lily more than I've cared about anyone in years, and the thought of screwing this up keeps me awake at night. Then why are we doing this? Because being scared and being alone are different things, and I'd rather be scared with you than safe and lonely." Evan felt his breath catch. He typed, "Lily thinks you like me. Romantically." Lily is very perceptive. She is. She's also 11 and thinks everything is simple. Maybe some things are simpler than we make them. Maybe two people who care about each other just need to take it one day at a time and see what happens. Is that what we're doing? Caring about each other? I am. I can't speak for you. Evan closed his eyes, feeling the weight of the decision pressing down on him. He could play it safe, keep Chloe at arm's length, protect himself and Lily from potential hurt. Or he could take the risk, open himself up to possibility, and see where it led. He thought about his mother, who'd taken risks her entire life, leaving an abusive marriage, raising a child alone, working herself to exhaustion to give him opportunities. She'd been brave in ways he'd never fully appreciated until she was gone. Maybe it was time for him to be brave too. "I care about you," he typed, "more than I thought I would. More than is probably wise. And it scares the hell out of me." Good scared or bad scared? Both, mostly good. Then let's be scared together. Let's take it slow and see what happens. No pressure, no expectations, just two people figuring things out. And Lily? Lily comes first, always. I would never do anything to hurt her, or you. Evan believed her. Against all odds, after everything, he believed her. "Okay," he wrote, "let's see where this goes. Thank you for giving me this chance, for giving us this chance. Don't make me regret it. I won't, I promise." They texted for another hour, the conversation meandering from serious to silly, touching on everything and nothing. Chloe told him about a disastrous board meeting where someone had accidentally shared the wrong screen and everyone had seen his online shopping cart full of action figures. Evan told her about the time he'd fallen asleep during a faculty meeting and woken himself up with his own snoring. By the time they said goodnight, Evan felt lighter than he had in years, like he'd been carrying a weight he didn't know he could put down, and someone had finally helped him set it aside. He checked on Lily one more time before bed, finding her asleep with a book on her chest and a smile on her face. He carefully removed the book, marked her place, and kissed her forehead. "Thank you," he whispered to his sleeping daughter, "for being braver than I am, for pushing me to take chances, for being the best thing in my life." As he climbed into his own bed, Evan's phone buzzed one more time, a message from Chloe. "Sweet dreams, see you Saturday." "Sweet dreams," he wrote back. "Can't wait." And for the first time in longer than he could remember, Evan fell asleep not with worry or exhaustion, but with anticipation for what tomorrow might bring. The future was uncertain, but maybe, just maybe, it was also bright. Saturday arrived with unexpected warmth for late November, the kind of day that felt like a gift before winter truly settled in. Evan woke early, nervous energy thrumming through him despite having slept better than usual. Today felt significant somehow, though he couldn't quite articulate why. Maybe it was the way Lily had been planning their tour of the town all week, making lists of places to show Chloe. Or maybe it was the realization that this was becoming real, not just coffee dates and tentative texts, but actual integration of their lives. Chloe arrived at 10, dressed in jeans and boots and a jacket that probably cost more than Evan's monthly salary, but looked perfectly casual. She'd brought coffee for all three of them, regular for Evan, hot chocolate for Lily, some complicated oat milk latte for herself. "Ready for the grand tour?" Evan asked as they climbed into his car. He'd cleaned it the night before, vacuuming out the crumbs and removing the stack of student essays from the passenger seat. "Can't wait. Lily's been texting me hints all week, but won't tell me where we're going." "It's a surprise," Lily said from the back seat, practically bouncing with excitement. "We're showing you the real town, not the boring tourist stuff." They started at the farmer's market, which occupied the parking lot of an old church every Saturday morning. Evan watched Chloe's face light up as they wandered through stalls of fresh produce, homemade jams, and artisan breads. She insisted on buying apples from an elderly farmer who told them stories about his orchard, and a loaf of sourdough from a woman who'd been baking for 40 years. "This is amazing," Chloe said, juggling her purchases as they walked. "I've forgotten what it's like to buy food from actual people instead of apps." "You buy all your groceries through apps?" Lily asked, scandalized. "Mostly, when I remember to eat." Chloe looked sheepish. "I'm terrible at taking care of myself. I get focused on work and forget basic things like meals." "That's unhealthy," Lily informed her seriously. "Dad makes me eat vegetables every day, even when I don't want to." "Your dad is very wise." "Your dad is very tired," Evan corrected, but he was smiling. Next, they drove to the nature preserve on the edge of town, a place Evan and Lily visited often, but never seemed to tire of. They hiked an easy trail that wound through woods already bare for winter, the leaves crunching under their feet. Chloe asked questions about everything, the types of trees, the birds they heard calling, the creek that ran alongside the path. "I grew up in Connecticut, which you'd think would be similar to this, but I barely spent any time outside," Chloe said as they paused at a scenic overlook. "My parents weren't really nature people, and boarding school was all about academics and sports, not just being in the world." "That's sad," Lily said. "Being outside is the best part of life." "I'm starting to realize that." Chloe took a deep breath, her eyes closed. "I can't remember the last time I just stood somewhere and listened to nothing but wind and birds." Evan watched her, this woman who commanded boardrooms and ran a billion-dollar company, looking more peaceful than he'd ever seen her. There was something vulnerable about Chloe in this moment, stripped of the armor of success and just being present. They ate lunch at a tiny Mexican restaurant that Lily declared had the best tacos in the universe. Chloe agreed after her first bite and insisted on ordering one of everything on the menu so they could try it all. The owner, Mrs. Garcia, came out to chat with them, delighted to have Evan and Lily back and curious about their new friend. "Is this your wife?" Mrs. Garcia asked with a knowing smile, and Evan felt his face go hot. "We're just friends," he managed. "Friends who look at each other like that?" Mrs. Garcia winked. "Okay, just friends, for now." After she walked away, Lily giggled. "Everyone can tell, Dad. You're not subtle." "Can we please change the subject?" "Why?" Chloe asked, and there was something mischievous in her expression. "I kind of liked being mistaken for your wife." Evan nearly choked on his water. Lily looked delighted. "Too soon?" Chloe asked, though she was grinning. "Way too soon," Evan said, but he was smiling too. The afternoon included stops at the library where Evan volunteered on weekends, the record store that somehow still existed in the age of streaming, and the park where Lily had learned to ride a bike. Each place came with stories, Evan teaching a reluctant teenager to love reading, Lily falling 7 times before finally mastering 2 wheels, the owner of the record store who'd given Evan his first job at 16. "You're part of this place," Chloe observed as they drove toward their final destination. "Everyone knows you. Everyone likes you." "Small town," Evan said. "People know everyone." "It's more than that. You've built a life here, a real community. People don't just know you, they care about you. It takes time, showing up consistently, being present. I wouldn't know how to do that." Chloe's voice had gone quiet. "I've moved so much, changed cities and jobs and circles, never stayed anywhere long enough to build roots." "Is that what you want? Roots?" "I think so. I think that's what's been missing." Their last stop was Evan's favorite place in the entire town, a small used bookstore called Chapter 2 that occupied a converted Victorian house. The owner, Margaret, was in her 70s and had been running the shop for 30 years. She knew Evan's taste in books better than he did, and always had recommendations waiting when he visited. "Evan!" Margaret called out as they entered, the bell above the door chiming. "And Lily! And who's this?" "This is our friend Chloe," Lily said. "We're showing her around." "Lovely to meet you." Margaret shook Chloe's hand, then turned to Evan. "I've been saving something for you. Come see." She led them to the classics section and pulled out a first edition of East of Eden, pristine despite its age. "Estate sale find. Thought of you immediately." Evan's breath caught. He'd wanted this for years, but first editions were far beyond his budget. "Margaret, I can't afford this." "Who said anything about affording it? Consider it payment for all those times you've helped me reorganize inventory. It's yours." "I can't." "You can, and you will. This book belongs with someone who loves it, not sitting in my storage room." Evan took the book with trembling hands, feeling the weight of it, the history. "Thank you, really, thank you. That's what friends do." Margaret patted his arm, then turned to Chloe. "You keep an eye on this one. He never lets anyone do nice things for him." "I'm learning that," Chloe said, watching Evan with soft eyes. They browsed for another hour, Chloe buying a stack of books that Margaret insisted on giving her a friend of Evan discount on. By the time they left, the sun was starting to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. "Thank you," Chloe said as they walked back to the car. "For today, for showing me your life. It means more than you know." "It's just a regular Saturday," Evan said. "No, it's not. It's beautiful and real and everything I've been missing." Chloe stopped walking, turning to face him. Lily had run ahead to the car, giving them a moment. "I want this, Evan. This life you've built. This community. This realness. And I want to be part of it, if you'll let me." "Chloe, I know it's fast. I know we're still figuring things out. But I need you to know that I'm serious about this. About you and Lily. About building something real." Evan looked at her, at the vulnerability in her eyes, and felt something settle in his chest. "I'm serious too. Scared, but serious." "Good scared?" "Mostly good scared." She smiled and it transformed her entire face. "Then let's keep going. Keep seeing where this leads." "Okay. But Chloe, I need you to understand something. My life isn't glamorous. It's budget spreadsheets and parent-teacher conferences and arguing with Lily about vegetables. If you're looking for excitement, I'm looking for meaning, for connection, for something that matters more than the next deal or product launch." She reached for his hand, and this time he didn't hesitate to take it. "I think I've been looking for you, actually. For someone who sees me as a person, not a brand. I do see you, the real you, and I like what I see. Even though I was horrible to you in high school? Even though. People change. You've changed. And I think..." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "I think maybe we needed to become who we are now before we could do this. Before we could be ready for each other." That's very philosophical for a Saturday afternoon. "I'm an English teacher. Philosophy is kind of my thing." She laughed, and the sound made his heart do something complicated in his chest. They stood there for a moment, hands linked, the world narrowing to just the two of them. "Dad, are we going home or are you going to stare at each other all day?" Lily's voice carried across the parking lot. "We should go," Evan said, but he didn't move. "We should," Chloe agreed, also not moving. Finally, they walked to the car, still holding hands. Lily gave them a knowing look but didn't comment, just climbed into the back seat with a satisfied smile. The weeks that followed fell into a rhythm that felt both new and natural. Chloe came over twice a week to help Lily with her math homework and somehow always stayed for dinner. At first, Evan protested. He didn't want her to feel obligated, didn't want to impose on her time. But Chloe insisted she loved it, loved the chaos of their small kitchen and the way Lily chattered about her day and the simple domesticity of it all. She learned to make Lily's favorite pasta dish and brought groceries without making a big deal about it. She attended Lily's science fair and cheered louder than anyone when Lily won second place. She showed up to Evan's classroom one afternoon with coffee and stayed to help him grade papers, offering surprisingly insightful feedback on student essays. "You'd make a good teacher," Evan observed as she marked up a particularly thoughtful analysis of The Great Gatsby. "I doubt that. I have no patience for the bureaucracy you deal with." "True. You'd probably try to optimize the entire education system and have a breakdown when you realized how resistant to change it is." "Accurate." She set down her red pen. "But I admire what you do. The patience, the care you put into each student, the way you see potential in kids everyone else has written off. That's the job. It's more than a job for you, it's a calling." Evan didn't know what to say to that, so he just squeezed her hand and went back to grading. By early December, Chloe had found a property for her East Coast headquarters, a converted mill building 20 minutes from Evan's town. She gave them a tour of the empty space, her excitement palpable as she described her vision. "I want to create something different here," she explained, walking through the cavernous main floor. "Not just another tech campus, but a place that actually serves the community. Job training programs for local residents, partnerships with schools, a childcare center for employees, paid family leave, living wages for everyone from the janitors to the executives." "Your board must love that," Evan said dryly. "They hate it. Think I'm wasting money on unnecessary perks. But I don't care. This is my company, and I'm going to run it my way." "What's a living wage?" Lily asked. "It means paying people enough that they can actually afford to live comfortably," Chloe explained. "Not just survive, but thrive. Afford rent and food and health care, and maybe even save a little." "Like Dad's salary?" "Actually, no. Teachers are criminally underpaid." "Chloe," Evan warned, "it's true. You shouldn't have to work a full-time job and still worry about money. That's not how it should be." Lily looked between them, something calculating in her expression. "Could Dad work for you?" "Lily!" Evan felt his face flush. "What?" "Chloe needs smart people, and Dad is really smart. And then he'd make enough money and wouldn't be stressed all the time." "Your dad is a teacher," Chloe said gently. "That's his calling. I wouldn't want to take him away from something he loves." "I don't know," Lily said. "He complains about it a lot." "Every job has frustrations," Evan said. "That doesn't mean I want to quit teaching." But later, after Lily was in bed, Chloe brought it up again. "She has a point, you know, about the stress." "I'm fine." "Evan," Chloe's voice was gentle. "I see how tired you are, how you worry. I'm not trying to insult you or suggest you can't handle it. I'm just saying there are other options, if you ever wanted them." "I appreciate that, but I'm a teacher. It's who I am." "Okay, but if that ever changes, the offer stands." Christmas approached, and with it came decisions about how to navigate the holidays. Evan and Lily usually spent Christmas quietly at home, just the two of them, with hot chocolate and movies and presents they'd carefully budgeted for. But this year felt different. "Can Chloe come for Christmas?" Lily asked one evening in mid-December. Evan looked up from the paper snowflakes they were cutting out. "That's a pretty big step, kiddo." "She doesn't have anywhere else to go. Her parents are in Europe, and she said she usually just works through the holidays." "That's sad, Dad." It was sad. The thought of Chloe alone in a hotel room on Christmas, while they celebrated without her, made Evan's chest ache. "Let me think about it." "What's there to think about? You like her. She likes you. It's Christmas. We should be together." "When did you become a relationship expert?" "When you started being so obvious about liking each other. Seriously, Dad, you smile at your phone like a teenager." Evan threw a paper snowflake at her. "I do not. You absolutely do." That night, Evan called Chloe. They'd progressed from texts to actual phone calls, conversations that sometimes lasted hours and touched on everything from philosophy to favorite childhood memories to fears about the future. "Lily wants you to come for Christmas," he said without preamble. There was a pause. "Really? Really? And honestly, so do I. If you don't have other plans." "I don't. I never do." Her voice had gone soft. "Are you sure? That's a very family-oriented holiday." "I know, but Chloe, you're becoming family, to both of us. And we'd like you to be there." "I'd love that." He could hear the emotion in her voice. "Thank you. For including me. Thank you for wanting to be included." Christmas morning arrived cold and clear, with snow that had fallen overnight coating everything in white. Chloe arrived at 9 with arms full of presents, despite Evan's explicit instructions to keep gifts modest. I know, but it's Christmas. Let me spoil you both just a little." They made pancakes together, Evan cooking, Chloe setting the table, Lily in charge of toppings. It felt natural and right, the three of them moving around the small kitchen in a dance they were still learning but getting better at. After breakfast, they opened presents. Evan had gotten Chloe a first edition of her favorite book. He'd saved for weeks to afford it, and she'd teared up when she opened it. Lily gave her a handmade card with a drawing of the three of them, labeled Our Family. Chloe had cried for real at that. For Evan, Chloe had gotten a leather messenger bag to replace his worn canvas one, along with a gift card to the bookstore. For Lily, there were books and art supplies and a telescope she'd mentioned wanting once in passing. "This is too much," Evan protested, but Chloe shook her head. "It's not enough. It'll never be enough to make up for high school, but it's a start." "You've already made up for high school," Lily said seriously, "by being here, by being nice to Dad and helping me with math and playing board games, even though you're terrible at them." "Hey, I'm getting better at board games. You lost Candyland to an 11-year-old last week. That game is rigged." They spent the day in comfortable domesticity, movies and hot chocolate, a walk in the snow, dinner made from scratch with everyone contributing. Evan watched Chloe and Lily work together on dessert, flour on both their faces, laughing at some joke he'd missed, and felt his heart expand with something that felt dangerously close to contentment. This was what he'd been missing, not just a partner, but this feeling of completeness, of family, of home. That evening, after Lily had gone to bed exhausted and happy, Evan and Chloe sat on his worn couch drinking wine and watching the lights on their modest tree twinkle. "Best Christmas I've ever had," Chloe said quietly. "Really? Better than expensive gifts and fancy parties?" "So much better. Because it was real. Because I was wanted, not just invited out of obligation." She turned to face him. "Thank you, Evan, for letting me in, for giving me this. Thank you for wanting in, for seeing past my defenses and stubbornness. Your defenses are justified. Your stubbornness is part of your charm. I'm charming now. You've always been charming. I was just too self-absorbed to notice." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, and then Chloe said, "I have something else for you, but I wanted to wait until we were alone." She pulled a small box from her pocket, and Evan's heart started racing. "It's not what you think," she said quickly. "I mean, it could be eventually, but that's not what this is. You're not making sense. I know. I'm nervous." She handed him the box. "Just open it." Inside was a key, a simple silver key with a tag that read home. "It's to my new house," Chloe explained. "I closed on it last week. It's about 10 minutes from here. 3 bedrooms, a yard, nothing fancy but comfortable. And I want you and Lily to have a key, to feel like you can come over anytime, to feel like it's your home, too." Evan stared at the key, emotion clogging his throat. "Chloe, I don't know what to say." "Say you'll use it. Say you'll let me be part of your lives in a real way. Not just visits and planned outings, but actual integration. Say you'll let me try to build something with you." "I want that. God, I want that so much." Evan set down the key and took her hands. "But I'm scared. What if it doesn't work? What if 6 months from now you realize this isn't what you wanted? What if it does work?" Chloe interrupted. "What if 6 months from now we're even happier than we are right now? What if this is exactly what both of us have been looking for?" "That's terrifying in its own way." I know, but Evan, I love you. The words came out in a rush. I know it's too soon to say that. I know we're still figuring things out. But I need you to know. I love you. I love Lily. I love the life you've built, and the person you are, and the way you make me want to be better. And I know you might not feel the same way yet, and that's okay. But I needed to tell you. Evan felt like all the air had been sucked from the room. Chloe loved him. This incredible, complicated, formerly awful, now amazing woman loved him. I love you too, he heard himself say. I've been fighting it because it seemed impossible, because I kept waiting for the other shoe to drop. But Chloe, I love you. Have for weeks now, maybe longer. She kissed him then, and it felt like coming home and leaping off a cliff simultaneously. When they broke apart, both of them were grinning like idiots. So where does this leave us? Evan asked. Together, figuring it out as we go, building something real. I can work with that. They stayed on the couch until late, talking about the future in concrete terms for the first time. Chloe's new house and her plans for it. Evan's dreams for his teaching, and maybe, someday, that book he'd always wanted to write. Lily and her education, and making sure they put her needs first in all of this. The logistics of blending their lives while respecting each other's independence. I don't want you to feel like I'm trying to rescue you, Chloe said at one point, or solve all your problems with money. I know, and I'm working on accepting help when it's offered, not viewing every gesture as charity. We're both learning. Yeah, we are. The months that followed were a period of adjustment and growth. Chloe's headquarters opened in February, and the response from the community was overwhelmingly positive. She hired locally, paid well, and true to her word, implemented programs that actually served people instead of just extracting value. Evan watched her thrive in this new role, building something that aligned with her values. In March, Lily asked if Chloe could come to her school's parent night. I want to show off my whole family, she'd said, and Evan had agreed, his heart full. In April, Evan got a promotion. Not to administration, which he'd never wanted, but to lead teacher in the English department with a modest pay increase and the opportunity to mentor new teachers. It wasn't life-changing money, but it helped. More than that, it felt like recognition of his work. In May, Chloe tentatively asked if they'd want to move in with her. No pressure, she'd said quickly. Your apartment is your home, and I don't want to push. But my house has 3 bedrooms, and one of them has perfect light for reading, and I thought maybe Lily would like having a yard, and… Yes, Evan had interrupted. Yes, we'd like that, but we need to do it right. Talk to Lily, make sure she's comfortable. Take our time with the transition. Of course. Whatever feels right. They'd told Lily together, and she'd screamed with excitement, already planning how to decorate her new room. They moved in over the summer, taking weeks to make the transition gradual and comfortable. Evan insisted on paying rent, and after some negotiation, they'd settled on an amount that felt fair to both of them. The house became a home slowly, filling with their combined belongings and new routines. Sunday morning pancakes became a tradition, with all 3 of them taking turns choosing toppings. Chloe's work-from-home days meant she was there when Lily got off the school bus, helping with homework, or just listening to stories about the day. Evan's evening routine of reading on the couch expanded to include Chloe curled up beside him, working on her laptop while he graded papers. They had fights, of course, about money and parenting and whose turn it was to do dishes, about Chloe's workaholic tendencies and Evan's stubborn independence, about how to balance their different backgrounds and expectations. But they fought fair and apologized sincerely and worked through things instead of letting resentment fester. By the time autumn rolled around again, nearly a year after that reunion that had changed everything, the 3 of them had settled into something that felt permanent. Not perfect. Nothing was perfect. But real and good and worth fighting for. One Sunday morning in October, Evan woke to find Chloe's side of the bed empty. Concerned, he got up and padded downstairs to find her in the kitchen, staring at something in her hands with an expression he couldn't read. "Everything okay?" he asked. She looked up and he saw tears in her eyes. Happy tears, he thought, but tears nonetheless. "I need to ask you something," she said. "Okay." Sit down first. Now he was worried. Chloe, you're scaring me. Good scared or bad scared? Despite his concern, he smiled at the callback to their earlier conversations. Not sure yet. She took a deep breath and pulled out a small velvet box. Evan's heart stopped. I know this isn't traditional, Chloe said, her voice shaking slightly. I know the man is supposed to ask, but I've never been very good at traditional, and I've waited long enough to find what we have. So Evan Carver, love of my life, best man I've ever known, father to the most incredible child. Will you marry me? Evan stared at the ring, simple and elegant, exactly his style, and felt emotion crash over him like a wave. A year ago, he'd walked into that reunion expecting nothing but painful memories. Instead, he'd found this, found love and partnership and a future he'd stopped believing in. Yes, he managed. God, yes, obviously yes. Chloe laughed through her tears and slipped the ring on his finger. It fit perfectly, like everything else about them together. Can I add one condition? Evan asked. Anything. Next year's reunion, the 21st, I want to be the one to tell everyone, especially Jake Morrison. Chloe threw her head back and laughed. Deal, absolutely deal. What's happening? Lily's sleepy voice came from the doorway. She stood there in her pajamas, rubbing her eyes, and then focused on them, on the ring on Evan's finger, on her father and Chloe holding each other and crying happy tears. Are you getting married? Lily's voice went up an octave. We are, Chloe said. If that's okay with you. Lily screamed and launched herself at them, and they all ended up in a heap on the kitchen floor, laughing and crying and holding each other. I knew it, Lily said. I knew from the beginning this would happen. You did not, Evan protested. I did. I told you she was nice. I told you it felt right, and I was correct. You were, Chloe agreed. You were absolutely correct. They spent the morning on the kitchen floor, making plans and dreaming about the future. A small wedding, they decided. Just family and close friends. Nothing fancy, because fancy wasn't who they were anymore. Just real and honest and full of love. Can I make one request? Lily asked. Of course, they said in unison. Can we still have Sunday pancakes, even after you're married? Even when things change? Things aren't going to change that much, Evan assured her. We're already a family. This just makes it official. And Sunday pancakes are non-negotiable, Chloe added. That's going in the wedding vows. They made pancakes then, the three of them working together in the kitchen of the home they'd built. Chloe still wasn't great at flipping them. She'd probably never master that particular skill. But Lily and Evan didn't mind. They'd eat burned pancakes for the rest of their lives if it meant mornings like this. Later, when Lily was in the yard raking leaves and Evan and Chloe were cleaning up the breakfast dishes, she turned to him. Thank you, she said softly. For what? For giving me a second chance, for seeing past who I was to who I could be, for letting me into your life and Lily's life and teaching me what real love looks like. Thank you for wanting to change, for doing the work, for being brave enough to apologize and patient enough to prove you meant it. She kissed him, soft and sweet, and he thought about how far they'd come. From bully and victim to partners and parents and soon-to-be spouses. It wasn't a story anyone would have predicted, but it was theirs, messy and complicated and absolutely perfect. Outside, Lily was building a leaf pile, her laughter carrying through the open window. Inside, Evan and Chloe stood with their arms around each other, watching the child they both loved play in the autumn sunshine. This was home. Not the house or the town or any physical place, but this feeling, this connection. These people who'd chosen each other despite everything that should have kept them apart. Evan thought about his mother, who'd worked so hard to give him opportunities. About Rebecca, who'd left but in leaving had allowed him to find something better. About 20-year-old him, walking across that graduation stage as valedictorian, telling everyone that the future belonged to those who showed up for it. He'd shown up, kept showing up through hard times and lonely years and moments of despair. And look what showing up had brought him. Everything. It had brought him everything. I love you, he told Chloe. I love you too. Both of you. My whole heart. They stood there in their kitchen, in their home, in the life they'd built from broken pieces and second chances. The future stretched ahead of them, uncertain but bright. And they were ready. Together. Finally, completely ready.